Welcome to Lotus Whisper, a quiet space for your mind to find rest. Tonight, we will explore a simple yet profound truth. Letting go is not losing, it is gaining peace. Throughout our days, we gather burdens, small and large, worries about tomorrow, echoes of yesterday, the weight of what we think we must be. We hold them tightly, often without realizing it, like a fist clenched so long it has forgotten how to open. But here in the stillness of this moment, we can learn to gently unfurl our fingers. We can discover that what we thought was a loss is actually a release, an unburdening that makes space for tranquility to enter. This is not about forgetting, but about finding freedom in release. Please subscribe to the channel to hear more stories like this. Part 1. The Clenched Fist and the Open Hand. Let us begin with a simple image. The image of a hand. Feel, just for a moment, the potential in your own hand. The way it can hold a cup of warm tea, or gently touch a flower petal, or rest softly in your lap. It is a place of connection, of creation, of peace. Now, imagine that hand slowly, deliberately closing into a fist. Finger by finger, it curls inward. The thumb wraps tightly over the knuckles. Feel the tension gathering. The skin stretches taut. The muscles in your forearm tighten, a chain of effort pulling all the way up to your shoulder. This is the clenched fist. It is a posture of defense, of struggle, of holding on. We do this not just with our hands, but with our minds. All day long, and sometimes long into the night, we clench. We clench around worries about what is to come. We clench around regrets for what has already passed. We clench around ideas of who we are supposed to be and what we believe we are owed by the world. Each of these thoughts, these memories, these expectations is like a small, hard pebble placed in the palm of our mind. And without even thinking, we close our fingers around it, squeezing it, guarding it, believing that this act of holding on is what we must do. We believe it gives us control. We believe it keeps us safe. But what is the cost of this constant clenching? The fist held for too long begins to ache. The knuckles turn white with strain. The muscles burn with fatigue. The energy it takes to hold on is immense, a silent drain on our vitality that we often mistake for the normal state of being. We become so accustomed to the tension that we forget what it feels like to be open. The world outside the fist ceases to be a place of wonder and becomes a collection of threats, things that might try to pry our fingers open and take what we are so desperately guarding. We live inside this self-imposed prison of tension, and the tragedy is we are both the prisoner and the guard. The door is not locked. We simply have forgotten that our hand can open. This journey tonight is about remembering. It is about the gentle, courageous act of uncurling the fingers, one by one. It is about discovering that the peace we seek is not found in grasping more tightly, but in the simple, profound release of letting go. In a monastery nestled among ancient cedar trees, where the morning mist often lingered like a soft blanket over the mossy stones, lived a young monk named Kenji. Kenji was sincere and diligent. He rose before the first light, his footsteps quiet on the dark wooden floors. He swept the temple courtyard with mindful strokes, each whisk of the bamboo broom a prayer. He sat in the meditation hall for hours, his back straight, his posture perfect. Yet peace eluded him. His mind was a clenched fist. While his body was still, his thoughts raced and churned. He would try to focus on his breath, but his mind would be clinging to a mistake he made the day before, replaying a clumsy word or an awkward bow. He would try to find stillness, but his mind would leap into the future, worrying if the master, Ryotan, was pleased with his progress, or if he would ever be a good monk. He held on to his ambition for enlightenment like a drowning man clings to a piece of wood. The harder he tried to be calm, the more agitated he became. His brow was always slightly furrowed, a subtle map of his inner turmoil. The other monks moved with a certain lightness, a grace that seemed to flow from a deep well of tranquility. Kenji felt heavy, burdened by the sheer effort of his practice. The master, Ryotan, was an old man with eyes that held the quiet depth of a forest pool. He saw everything, not with scrutiny, but with a gentle, encompassing awareness. He saw the tension in Kenji's shoulders. He saw the tightness around his mouth. He saw the young monk's desperate struggle, the clenching of his spirit. Ryotan knew that words and lectures would be of little use. The mind cannot be forced open. It must be shown the way. One afternoon, as the sun cast long, peaceful shadows across the raked gravel of the Zen garden, Ryotan called Kenji to his side. He did not speak. He simply gestured for Kenji to sit on the worn wooden step of the veranda. The air was filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. A single cicada sang its patient, rhythmic song. Ryotan reached into the sleeve of his robe and produced a small, smooth stone. It was a river stone, dark gray and worn perfectly round by centuries of flowing water. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Ryotan placed the stone in Kenji's open palm. It felt cool and solid, a small piece of the mountain stillness. Then, the master said, his voice as calm as the evening air, "Kenji, I want you to hold this stone. Close your hand around it. Squeeze it as tightly as you can. Do not let it go until I return." Kenji was confused. This was a strange instruction, but he trusted his master. He did as he was told. He wrapped his fingers around the stone, his thumb pressing down, and squeezed. He felt a sense of power, of control. The stone was completely contained within his fist. He could feel its unyielding shape against his skin. He was strong. He could do this for as long as the master wished. Ryotan gave a slow, knowing nod, and then walked away, his robes whispering against the polished wood, leaving Kenji alone with the stone and the instruction. The first hour passed easily. Kenji sat in perfect posture, his fist held tightly at his side. He felt a sense of purpose. He was following his master's command. This was a form of training, he thought, a test of his endurance and willpower. He watched the shadows of the cedar trees stretch and deepen. He listened to the sounds of the monastery winding down for the day, the distant clang of the kitchen pots, the soft chanting from the main hall, the evening call of a bird settling in for the night. By the second hour, his hand began to ache. It was a dull, persistent throb that started in his knuckles and radiated up his wrist. He tried to ignore it, focusing on his breath as he had been taught. But the pain was a constant distraction. The stone no longer felt like a simple, cool object. It felt like an intruder, a source of irritation, the very center of his discomfort. His focus, once broad enough to take in the whole garden, had now shrunk to the small, tight space of his own hand. By the third hour, the ache had sharpened into a biting pain. His forearm was trembling with the effort. A fine sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead, though the evening air was cool. Every muscle from his fingertips to his shoulder was screaming in protest. The act of holding on was no longer a display of strength, it was an agony. He found himself resenting the stone. He resented the master for giving him this impossible task. Why was he being made to suffer like this? What was the lesson in this pointless pain? His mind, once again, was a storm of frustration and confusion. All he could think about was the pain, the strain, the desperate need to just let go. But he could not. He had been told to hold on. The moon had risen, a pale silver disk in the indigo sky, when Master Ryotan finally returned. He moved without a sound, his presence a sudden stillness beside the suffering monk. He looked at Kenji, whose face was pale and contorted with effort. He looked at the white-knuckled fist, trembling with exhaustion. "What do you feel, Kenji?" Ryotan asked softly. Tears of frustration welled in Kenji's eyes. "Master, I am in pain," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "My hand feels like it is on fire. My arm is weak. This stone, it is a torment. I have held it as you asked, but I do not understand. I have only found suffering." Ryotan's gaze was filled with compassion. He did not offer sympathy or praise for the monk's endurance. He simply said, "The stone is not the cause of your pain. Open your hand." The words were a release. Kenji's will, which had been so focused on clenching, finally surrendered. With a deep, shuddering gasp, he unfurled his fingers. The motion was stiff and slow. As his palm opened, the river stone rolled gently from his grasp, falling with a soft click onto the wooden step. And then came the relief. It was an overwhelming physical sensation. A warm rush of blood surged back into his fingers, bringing with it a feeling of pins and needles, a tingling sign of life returning. The sharp, biting pain dissolved, leaving behind a dull, fading ache. He looked at his hand, at the deep red crescent imprinted in his palm where the stone had been. He flexed his fingers, feeling their new lightness, their freedom. The pain had not been in the stone. The stone was just a stone. It now sat innocently on the step, bathed in the soft moonlight. The pain, the agony, the struggle had all been in the clenching. It was his own effort, his own holding on, that had caused his suffering. He looked up at his master, his eyes wide with a sudden, dawning comprehension. He saw it all so clearly. The stone was his worry about the future. It was his regret about the past. It was his desperate ambition for enlightenment. These things, in themselves, were not the source of his pain. They were just thoughts, just memories, as neutral as a river stone. His suffering came from his mental fist, from the way he clenched his mind around them, squeezed them, and refused to let them go. He had been spending all his energy holding on to the very things that were causing him pain, believing it was his duty to do so. Ryotan sat down beside him. He picked up the stone and placed it gently back into Kenji's now open, relaxed palm. "The world will always place stones in your hand, Kenji," the master said, his voice a quiet murmur in the night. "Regrets will come. Fears will arise. This is the nature of life. You cannot stop the stones from appearing. The lesson is not to build a fortress to keep them out. The lesson is to not make a fist. Let them rest in your open hand. Acknowledge them. See them for what they are. And then let them be. Let them go when it is time for them to go. The hand that is open can receive. The hand that is clenched can only hold its own pain. Kenji looked down at the stone resting lightly in his open palm. It felt cool and peaceful again. He could feel its texture, its weight, its simple presence, without any of the struggle. He could close his hand gently around it, or he could let it rest. The choice was his. The freedom was in the openness. A deep sense of peace, a peace he had been striving for so desperately, washed over him. It wasn't a peace he had achieved or won. It was a peace that was already there, waiting for him, underneath all the clenching. As you lie here now, preparing for sleep, perhaps you can feel the places in your own mind that are clenched into a fist. You do not need to name them all. You can simply feel the tension, the subtle tightness in your jaw, the faint knot in your stomach, the weight in your chest. These are the signs of a mind that is holding on to the day that has just passed, holding on to a conversation that did not go as planned, holding on to a worry about a task that awaits you tomorrow. Each of these is a stone, and you have been holding them so tightly for so long. You may have believed that this clenching is necessary, that if you let go, everything will fall apart. But just for this moment, here in the safety and quiet of your bed, consider the possibility of opening your hand. You don't have to force it. Just like Kenji, you can simply allow it to happen. With each breath you take, imagine your mind softening. With each exhale, imagine your fingers uncurling, just a little. There is no need to throw the stones away. They are part of your story. They are the river stones that have shaped you. But you do not need to suffer from them. Imagine your worries, your regrets, resting in the open palm of your awareness. They are there. You can see them, but they are not you, and you are not the act of holding them. You are the open hand. You are the space, the stillness, in which they can rest without causing pain. Feel the relief that comes with this simple shift in perspective. A warmth spreading through you, like blood returning to a hand that has been clenched too tight. A lightness in your spirit, a quiet in your mind. The tension does not serve you. The struggle does not protect you. It only exhausts you. The real strength, the real peace is in the open hand. It is in the gentle release. It is in the quiet courage to let be and to let go. As you drift deeper into rest, let this be your meditation. An open hand, an open heart, an open mind, ready to receive the deep and healing peace of a quiet night's sleep. The clenching is over. The day is done. Now is the time for release. This release is not just an idea, it is a feeling that can ripple through your entire being. Let it begin in the place where Kenji felt his strain the most. Your hands. Allow your own hands, wherever they may be resting, to feel completely open and soft. Imagine any lingering tension from the day flowing out through your fingertips, leaving behind a gentle warmth and a sense of profound ease. There is nothing to hold, nothing to grasp. They are simply at rest. From your hands, let this feeling of openness travel up your arms and into your shoulders. Feel the muscles there softening, melting away from your ears, releasing the invisible weight they have carried all day. So much of our burden settles in our shoulders, a physical manifestation of our mental clenching. Allow them to be heavy now, but with the pleasant weight of relaxation, not the strain of responsibility. Let them sink down, supported completely by the surface beneath you. Bring this gentle awareness to your face. Feel the space between your eyebrows, a space that so often holds a furrow of concentration or worry. Let it smooth out, becoming wide and serene, like the calm surface of a pond at dusk. Allow your jaw to unclench, letting your teeth part slightly. The jaw is another place where we hold on tightly, bracing ourselves against the world. In this moment, there is nothing to brace for. You are safe. You are at peace. Let it go. The thoughts may still arise, faint echoes of the day. See them now not as stones to be clenched, but as leaves floating on the surface of that still pond. They drift into view, and they will drift away again on their own. You do not need to push them away or hold on to them. They are not you. You are the stillness of the water that allows them to pass without disturbance. The imprint of the stone in Kenji's palm eventually faded. In the same way, the imprint of the day's worries on your mind can now begin to fade, leaving no trace, only a smooth and peaceful calm. This is an act of profound trust. Trust in the ground that supports you. Trust in the air that fills your lungs without any effort from you. Trust that for this moment, for this night, you can lay down your guard. The world will continue to turn without your constant vigilance. The problems of tomorrow will be there for the tomorrow version of you to handle. The you that is here, now, has only one task: to rest, to be open, to receive the quiet healing of sleep. Feel the peace that was always there, just beneath the tension. It is like the cool, solid wood of the monastery veranda that was there all along, waiting to support Kenji once he let go of his struggle. Your own inner peace is just as solid, just as patient. It has been waiting for you, and now you have arrived. In this open, soft, and trusting space, allow yourself to drift. There is nowhere else to be. There is nothing else to do. Simply rest in the freedom of the open hand. Part 2. The Story of the Empty Boat. The mind, having found the freedom of an open hand, is now quiet. But the world does not cease its motion. Life continues to unfold, and with it come unexpected encounters. Moments where our path crosses with another, sometimes gently, sometimes with a sudden jolt. It is in these moments of collision that our newfound peace is tested. We may have let go of the stones we carry inside, but what do we do when another boat bumps against our own? Our first instinct is often to look for someone to blame. We search for a pilot, a captain, a source for our disturbance, so that our anger has a target, a place to land. But what if there is no one there? What if the boat that bumps us is empty? This is a story about that empty boat and the profound peace that comes from realizing we are often shouting at a vessel with no one at the helm. It is a story that invites us to lay down our arguments with the world and instead find a stillness so deep that no collision can truly disturb it. Imagine a vast, tranquil lake, so wide that from its center The shore is just a hazy green line in the distance. It is the hour before dawn, a time of deep silence and soft gray light. A thick mist hangs over the water, clinging to the surface like a silken blanket, muffling all sound and blurring the line between water and sky. The air is cool and clean, carrying the scent of damp earth and sleeping water lilies. It is a world suspended between dream and waking. Into this stillness, a small wooden boat glides. In it sits a man named Lin. Lin is not a monk or a great master. He is a simple scholar, a man who loves books and quiet contemplation. But the village where he lives has become too loud for him. The constant chatter, the arguments in the marketplace, the endless anxieties of his neighbors. They have begun to seep into his own mind, leaving him feeling agitated and weary. He feels constantly bumped and jostled by the carelessness and anger of others. He carries with him a list of grievances, small and large. The merchant who gave him the wrong change, the neighbor who plays his music too loud, the official who was dismissive and rude. His mind is a ledger of slights and injustices. So he is taken to rising before anyone else and rowing his small boat out to the middle of the lake. Here, he believes, he can find the peace that eludes him on land. Here, there are no people to disturb him. There is only the vast, quiet water and the immense, silent sky. He rows with a slow, rhythmic motion, the gentle dip and pull of the single oar, making a soft, splashing sound that is quickly swallowed by the mist. He finds a spot where the water is like glass and lays the oar down inside the boat. He closes his eyes. He breathes in the cool, misty air and tries to let the stillness of the lake seep into his soul. For a few moments it works. He feels the tension in his shoulders begin to dissolve. The frantic rhythm of his thoughts begins to slow. He feels a sense of space opening up within him. This is what he came for. This solitude, this perfect, uninterrupted peace. He is the only person on the lake. He is safe from the world. And then it happens. A sudden, hard jolt. A loud, jarring thud echoes across the water, and his boat rocks violently from side to side. The unexpected force throws him off balance, and he has to grab the sides of the boat to steady himself. His eyes fly open. His heart is pounding. His peace is shattered. Instantly, a hot surge of anger rises in his chest. Who could be so careless? Who would be out on the lake at this hour, moving so recklessly in the thick mist? His mind, which moments before was settling into a state of calm, is now a whirlwind of blame. A fool, he thinks. A thoughtless, clumsy idiot has ruined his morning, his one chance for peace. He feels the familiar clenching in his jaw, the tightening in his stomach. He is ready for a fight. He turns his head, his eyes scanning the mist, searching for the culprit. He sees the dark shape of another boat just a few feet away, the one that has just crashed into his. He prepares his words, his voice ready to cut through the morning silence with sharp, angry accusations. "Watch where you are going," he is ready to shout. "Are you blind? You could have capsized me. What is wrong with you?" The indignation feels righteous. He is the victim. He has been wronged. He pushes himself up slightly, peering through the swirling gray vapors, ready to confront the person who has so rudely disturbed him. But as the mist shifts and thins for a moment, he sees something that stops his words in his throat. He looks into the other boat, and he sees that it is empty. There is no one there. No careless fisherman, no reckless traveler, no one to shout at, no one to blame. The boat is just a simple, unadorned skiff, much like his own. A length of frayed rope hangs from its bow, suggesting it has simply broken free from its moorings somewhere along the shore. It has been carried by the silent, invisible currents of the lake, drifting aimlessly through the mist, until its random journey intersected with his. It is just an object, a piece of wood on the water. Lin stares at the empty boat, and a strange feeling washes over him. His anger, so hot and ready just a moment ago, now has nowhere to go. It is like a wave that has risen up to crash against a cliff, only to find the cliff has vanished, leaving only open air. The anger dissipates, dissolving into the mist as quickly as it arose. He feels a profound sense of foolishness. Who was he about to yell at? The boat? The current? The mist? The absurdity of his own reaction becomes starkly clear. He sits back down, his body slumping slightly as the tension drains away. The jolt of the collision was real, the disturbance was real, but the anger, the blame, the story of being wronged, that was entirely his own creation. It was a fire he had built in his own mind, ready to be fueled by the presence of another person. But the other boat was empty, and in its emptiness it offered him a powerful teaching. He looks at the empty boat, now bobbing gently beside his own. It is not an enemy. It is not a fool. It is just what it is, an empty boat subject to the wind and the water. It has no intention, no malice, no awareness of the chaos it just caused in his heart. And in that moment, Lin understands. The problem was not the boat. The problem was that he had assumed there was someone in it. His mind drifts back to the village. He thinks of the merchant who gave him the wrong change. He had been so sure the man was trying to cheat him. But what if the merchant's boat was empty? What if his mind was simply adrift, lost in worry about a sick child at home, or the fear of not being able to pay his debts? His action was not aimed at Lin. Lin just happened to be the one his boat bumped into. He thinks of his neighbor with the loud music. He had been convinced the man was deliberately trying to annoy him, a personal attack on his peace. But what if that man's boat was empty? What if he was a lonely old man, and the music was the only thing that filled the silence of his empty house? The only thing that kept the sadness at bay. The noise was not a weapon. It was a shield for a pain Lin could not see. He thinks of the dismissive official. He had felt insulted, diminished by the man's arrogance. But what if that official's boat was also empty? What if he was simply exhausted, overwhelmed by the endless stream of complaints and demands, his mind and spirit worn down to a nub, with no courtesy left to give? His rudeness was not about Lin's worth. It was about his own emptiness. One by one, the people he held grievances against appear in his mind. And one by one, he sees them not as malicious pilots steering their boats directly at him, but as people in their own empty boats, adrift on the vast, misty lake of life. They are moved by currents he cannot see, by their own past, their own fears, their own pain, their own ignorance. Their boats bump into his, and his bumps into theirs, not out of malice, but because on a crowded lake, in a thick mist, collisions are inevitable. A profound sense of peace settles over him, a peace far deeper and more stable than the fragile solitude he had been seeking. This peace does not depend on being alone. It does not depend on the world behaving as he wishes. It comes from within. It comes from the wisdom of seeing the empty boat. It is the freedom that comes from letting go of blame. He realizes that for his entire life, he has been exhausting himself, shouting at empty boats. He reaches out and places a hand on the side of the other vessel. He feels the damp, rough wood. He gives it a gentle push, sending it on its way, back into the mist. He watches it disappear, a silent teacher vanishing as quietly as it appeared. He picks up his oar. The sun is beginning to burn through the mist, casting a soft, golden light across the water. The world is waking up, but it is a different world now. Or rather, he is a different man seeing it. He no longer feels like a victim in a world of aggressors. He feels a sense of compassion. We are all, in a way, drifting. As you lie here, ready for sleep, think of the boats that have bumped into you today, the car that cut you off in traffic, the person who was short with you on the phone, the unexpected problem that disrupted your plans. Your first reaction may have been anger, frustration, a sense of being wronged. You may have spent precious energy composing arguments in your head, replaying the injustice, assigning blame to the pilot of that other boat. But now, just for a moment, consider the possibility that those boats were empty. The person who bumped into you was not aiming for you. They were simply adrift, moved by currents you cannot see. Their mind was elsewhere, lost in a mist of their own worries, their own distractions, their own pain. Their action was not about you. It was about the state of their own journey. When you see this, the anger has nowhere to go. It cannot survive without an enemy, without a target to blame. It dissolves, leaving behind not weakness, but a quiet strength. The strength of understanding, the strength of compassion. You do not have to forgive a malicious act because there was no malice. There was only an empty boat. Feel this understanding spreading through you now. Let go of the arguments you are still having in your mind. Let go of the need to be right. Let go of the feeling of being a victim. These are heavy anchors, and they keep you tethered to agitation and unrest. Release them. See the boats that bumped you today simply drift away into the mist of the past. They are gone. They have no more power over you. Your mind can become as still and vast as that morning lake. When a thought of irritation or blame arises, see it for what it is, the assumption that there is someone in the other boat, and then gently remind yourself, the boat is empty. Let the thought drift by. Do not engage with it. Do not give it your energy. This is the path to a profound and unshakable peace. It is a peace that can hold all the bumps and jolts of life without being shattered. It is the stillness of the deep water, which remains undisturbed no matter how many boats cross its surface. Allow yourself to sink into that deep, quiet stillness now. Let the gentle currents of your breath guide you. There are no more battles to fight. There is no one to blame. There are only empty boats, drifting on a vast and silent lake under a peaceful sky. And you are free. As Lin began to row back toward the shore, the world he was returning to was the same one he had left, yet everything felt different. The sun was higher now, a warm presence on his back, and the last of the mist was dissolving into wisps of white against a pale blue sky. He could hear the distant sounds of the village waking up, the crow of a rooster, the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the murmur of voices carrying across the water. Before, these sounds would have been the first signs of the day's coming irritations. They were the sounds of the world that was about to bump into him. But now, he heard them with a new kind of ear. The sounds were just sounds. They were the evidence of life, of other people beginning their day, each in their own small boat, each navigating their own unseen currents. He saw the smoke rising from his neighbor's chimney and felt not annoyance but a sense of shared existence. He imagined the man inside, perhaps stoking the fire to ward off the morning chill, his mind already occupied with the day's labors. The music that had so often bothered Lin now seemed less like an intrusion and more like a signal, a sign of another person's attempt to find a little joy or comfort in their world. When he finally guided his boat to the shore and stepped onto the damp earth, the feeling of peace did not leave him. It had settled deep within his bones. It was a quiet, resilient strength. He realized that his search for peace had been flawed from the beginning. He had thought peace was an external condition, a perfect environment free from disturbance. He had been trying to control the lake, to command every other boat to stay away from his. Now he knew that true peace was an internal state. It was the ability to remain still and centered even when his boat was bumped. The disturbance was an event in the water, not a storm in his soul. This understanding does not mean we become passive. It does not mean we allow other boats to crash into us repeatedly without taking action. Lin could still choose to mend his boat if it was damaged. He could choose to moor it in the safer place next time. He could even put up a small lantern in the mist. The wisdom of the empty boat is not about inaction. It is about the quality of the action that follows. An action born of anger and blame is reactive, clumsy, and often creates more collisions. An action born of clear seeing and compassion is calm, precise, and wise. It addresses the situation without poisoning the self. You can protect your space, you can speak your truth, you can set boundaries, but you do so from a place of inner stillness, not from the turbulent waters of personal offense. And what of the boats that seem to originate from within our own minds? The sudden, sharp thought of self-criticism that jolts you. The wave of anxiety about the future that rocks your calm. The ghost of a past mistake that drifts out of the mist of memory to bump against the present moment. We often react to these inner events with the same anger and blame. We scold ourselves for being anxious. We get angry at ourselves for not being able to let something go. We create a second collision, a battle within our own mind. But what if these inner boats are empty too? What if that critical thought is just an old recording, a habit of mind set adrift long ago, with no one at the helm? What if that jolt of anxiety is just a physiological response, a current of hormones and nerves with no malicious intent? When you see these inner disturbances as empty boats, you can stop fighting with them. You can acknowledge the bump. Ah, there is the anxiety boat again. There is the boat of self-doubt. You can feel the rock and sway without blaming the boat and without blaming yourself for being in its path. You can simply let it drift by. This is the ultimate act of letting go. It is a profound compassion that extends not only to the clumsy drifting world outside, but also to the clumsy drifting world within. There is no enemy, not out there on the lake, and not in here, in the quiet space of your own heart and mind. There is only the water, the mist, and the occasional, inevitable bump of an empty boat. Allow this feeling of deep, compassionate stillness to be your vessel tonight, carrying you toward the peaceful shores of sleep. Your body is your boat, and it is safely moored in the harbor of your bed. The currents of the day have ceased. The other boats have drifted away into the darkness. There is nothing to guard against, nothing to fight. You can lay down the oars of your mind. You can rest. Let the gentle, silent tide of your breath carry you out into the deep, calm, and healing waters of sleep. You are safe. You are still. You are free. Part 3. Letting go of the past, the two monks, and the woman. We have learned to see the empty boat, to release our blame toward the world outside. But what of the world within? What of the events that have already passed, the moments that are finished, yet continue to live within our minds? The past is a river we have already crossed, yet so often we find ourselves standing on the far bank, shivering and soaked, still feeling the pull of its current. We carry the memory of the water, the chill of the crossing, long after our feet are on dry land. We replay conversations, second-guess decisions, and hold on to slights and sorrows like precious, heavy stones. This is the story of two monks and a woman at a river, a story that teaches us the art of leaving the past where it belongs, behind us. Imagine a long, winding path through the countryside of ancient Japan. The sky is a canvas of soft gray, and a steady, gentle rain has been falling for hours. It is not a violent storm, but a persistent, soaking rain that has turned the dirt path into a thick, reddish-brown mud. The air is cool and smells of wet earth, pine needles, and the clean scent of rain itself. Every leaf on every tree hangs heavy with water, occasionally releasing a silver drop that lands with a soft pat on the mossy ground below. The world is quiet, washed clean, wrapped in a blanket of peaceful, damp silence. Walking this path are two monks. The first, the senior monk, is named Tanzan. He is a man whose age is hard to guess. His face is lined with the marks of laughter and deep thought, and his eyes hold a calm, clear light. He walks with a steady, unhurried pace, his bare feet making a soft, squelching sound in the mud. He seems untroubled by the rain or the difficult path. In fact, he seems to be enjoying it. He notices the way the water beads on a spider's web, the particular shade of green on a rain-soaked fern. His presence is solid, grounded, and completely in the moment. He is here, on this path, in this rain, and nowhere else. Behind him walks Aikido, a much younger monk. He is earnest and devout, his mind filled with the sacred texts and the strict rules of his monastic order. He is a good student, but his goodness is rigid, like a young bamboo stalk that has not yet learned to bend with the wind. He walks with his head slightly bowed, his brow furrowed in concentration. He is not enjoying the walk, he is enduring it. He is focused on the destination, the monastery where they will spend the night. The mud is an obstacle. The rain is a nuisance. His mind is not on the path. It is on the rules he must follow, the purity he must maintain. For miles they walk in a companionable silence, the only sounds being their footsteps in the whisper of the rain. Then, as the path rounds a bend, they come to a place where a river crosses their way. Normally, it might be a gentle stream, easily crossed by way of stepping stones. But today, swollen by the relentless rain, it has become a wide, churning torrent of muddy water. The stepping stones are completely submerged. The current is strong and swift. Standing at the edge of the river is a young woman. She is dressed in a beautiful silk kimono, a vibrant splash of color against the muted greens and browns of the landscape. She is clearly distressed. She is on her way to an important family gathering, but she cannot cross. The water is too deep and the current too strong. If she tries to wade through, her fine clothes will be ruined, and she might even be swept away. She wrings her hands, her face a mask of anxiety, looking back and forth as if hoping for a bridge to magically appear. Tanzan and Aikido stop. Aikido sees the situation and immediately knows the rule. Their monastic vows are clear and absolute. A monk must not touch a woman. They are to avoid all physical contact, to maintain a distance, to guard their vows of celibacy and detachment with unwavering discipline. Aikido averts his gaze slightly, a gesture of pious respect. He assumes they will simply wait for the rain to subside, or perhaps find another way, however long it takes. The rule is the rule. Tanzan, however, simply looks at the woman. He does not see a temptation or a threat to his vows. He sees a human being in distress. He sees a simple problem with a simple solution. Without a word, he walks directly to her. He bows his head slightly, and with a kind smile, he says, "Let me help you." Before the woman or Aikido can even react, Tanzan bends down, scoops her up into his arms, and carries her. He walks steadily into the churning river, his strong legs bracing against the current. He deposits her safely on the other side, setting her down gently on the muddy bank. She bows deeply, her face filled with gratitude and relief, and speaks her thanks. Tanzan simply smiles, bows in return, and then turns to cross back to Aikido. He wades through the river once more and rejoins the younger monk on the path. Then, as if nothing at all had happened, he continues walking. Aikido is frozen for a moment, his mind reeling in shock and disbelief. He cannot comprehend what he has just seen. Tanzan, his teacher, a senior monk, has just broken one of their most sacred vows. He touched a woman. He not only touched her, he held her. He carried her in his arms. Aikido's mind explodes in a silent chorus of judgment. How could he? It is a flagrant violation. What if someone saw? What would they think of their order? He has defiled himself, defiled their practice. Aikido quickly starts walking, his steps now stiff and angry, trying to keep up with his master, but he cannot speak. The words are caught in his throat, a tangled knot of confusion, indignation, and disappointment. He wants to scream, to demand an explanation, but he is also a junior monk, taught to respect his elders, so he says nothing. He walks on, but he is no longer on the path. He is back at the river, replaying the scene over and over again in his mind. He sees Tanzan lifting the woman. He sees the way her silk kimono clung to her in the rain. He sees the smile on Tanzan's face. Each time he replays the memory, his anger and confusion grow. The weight of his judgment is a heavy cloak on his shoulders. The rain seems colder now. The mud seems deeper. The journey, which was merely an inconvenience before, has become a form of torture. For the next hour they walk in silence, but it is no longer a peaceful silence. It is a thick, heavy silence, filled with Aikido's unspoken accusations. Tanzan, for his part, seems completely unaffected. He continues his steady pace, his mind apparently as clear as the sky after a storm. He points to a small, bright yellow flower growing by the side of the path. "Look, Aikido," he says, his voice full of simple delight. "Even in all this mud, such beauty." Aikido barely glances at it. Beauty? How can Tanzan think of flowers at a time like this? How can he be so casual, so serene after what he has done? The older monk's peace only serves to fuel the younger monk's turmoil. It feels like a mockery of his own inner struggle. Aikido's mind is a courtroom, and he is both prosecutor and judge, endlessly cross-examining the memory of Tanzan and the woman. They walk for another hour. The light begins to fade. The rain softens to a fine drizzle. Aikido's legs ache, but the pain in his mind is far worse. He feels a growing pressure in his chest, the physical manifestation of his unexpressed anger. He is carrying the woman. He is carrying her in his thoughts, her weight growing heavier with every step. He carries the broken rule, the perceived sin, the disappointment in his teacher. The burden is becoming unbearable. Finally, they arrive at the small monastery where they will spend the night. They are greeted quietly, given warm, dry robes and a simple meal of rice and pickles. They eat in silence. Aikido can barely taste the food. He watches Tanzan, who eats with mindful gratitude, as if it were the most delicious meal he had ever tasted. After the meal, they are shown to a simple room where they will sleep. The only sound is the gentle drumming of the rain on the roof. Aikido can stand it no longer. The pressure inside him is too great. He must speak. He turns to Tanzan, his voice tight and trembling with suppressed emotion. "Master Tanzan," he begins, his voice barely a whisper. Tanzan looks at him, his expression open and patient. Aikido's words come out in a rush. "Master, I must ask you. Back at the river, we are monks. Our vows are sacred. We are not to go near women. We are certainly not to touch them. It is a serious transgression. Yet you picked up that woman. You held her in your arms, and you carried her across the river. How could you do that? How could you break our sacred precepts?" He finishes, breathless, his heart pounding. He has finally said it. The accusation hangs in the quiet air of the room. Tanzan looks at Aikido. There is no defensiveness in his eyes, no anger, no guilt. There is only a gentle, loving curiosity. He lets the silence stretch for a moment, allowing Aikido's words to settle. Then he speaks, his voice is calm and soft as the rain on the roof. "Oh, that woman?" he says, a faint, kind smile touching his lips. "I left her there, by the side of the river, hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" The words strike Aikido with the force of a physical blow. He stumbles back a step, his mouth falling open. The entire world seems to shift on its axis. In an instant of blinding clarity, he understands. Tanzan had picked the woman up, and then he had put her down. The event was over, finished. He had acted out of simple, direct compassion, and then he had moved on, his mind free, his spirit light. It was Aikido who had been carrying her. For hours, for miles, he had carried her in his mind, wrapping her in his judgments, his anger, his rigid adherence to the rules. The weight that had been crushing him was not the woman, and it was not Tanzan's action. It was his own mind, his own refusal to let go of a moment that was long past. He was the one who was still standing at the river, drenched and shivering, unable to move on. A wave of shame, followed by an immense liberating wave of relief, washes over him. He sees the foolishness of his own inner turmoil. He had been so proud of his piety, his strict observance of the rules, but he had missed the very heart of the teaching. To be present, to be compassionate, and to be free. Tanzan, who had broken the letter of the law, had embodied its spirit. Aikido, who had clung to the letter, had been imprisoned by it. As you lie here now, preparing for your body to rest, take a moment to ask yourself Tanzan's question. What are you still carrying? Is there a woman, a man, a conversation, a mistake that you left by the side of a river hours, or days, or even years ago? Is there a moment from today that you are still replaying in your mind? An unkind word someone said to you, a clumsy word you said to someone else, a task you feel you did not perform perfectly. These things are like the woman by the river. They happened. They are over. The river of time has already flowed past them, carrying them away. Yet, like Aikido, we continue to carry them in our minds. We give them a weight they do not have. We allow them to exhaust our spirit and disturb our peace. We walk for miles under a burden that we alone have chosen to pick up. Tonight, you can put it down, right here, right now. You can leave it on the bank of the river. You do not need to analyze it anymore. You do not need to judge it. You do not need to understand it. You simply need to let it go. With each exhale, imagine yourself setting down one of these burdens. Feel the lightness that comes with the release. Feel the space that opens up in your mind. The past is a memory. It has no power over this present moment, unless you give it that power. Tanzin's great gift to Ekido was not a lesson in rules, but a lesson in freedom. It is a gift you can now give to yourself. The journey is long enough without carrying things that are not yours to hold. You are on the other side of the river now. The day is done. You are safe in this quiet room. Let your mind be as free and unburdened as Tanzin's. Let it rest. Ekido stood in the quiet room, the gentle sound of rain a backdrop to the profound silence that had fallen within him. The echo of Tanzin's question, "Are you still carrying her?" continued to reverberate through his being, dismantling the rigid structures of his mind. He looked at his teacher, and for the first time he saw not a rule breaker, but a man of true liberation. Tanzin's freedom was not a wild, undisciplined thing. It was a deep, grounded peace that came from seeing what was needed in the moment and acting on it with a pure heart, unburdened by dogma. He realized that the rules he had clung to so tightly were meant to be a raft to help one cross the river of suffering, not a house to be built on the riverbank. He had become so obsessed with the raft itself, its construction, its purity, its perfect form, that he had forgotten its purpose. Tanzin had simply used the raft of his compassion to help another, and then left it behind, as one is supposed to do. Ekido had been trying to drag the raft with him on the muddy path, exhausting himself in the process. This carrying of the past is a subtle and pervasive habit. We do it not just with significant events, but with countless small moments. We carry the lingering irritation from a morning traffic jam into our afternoon meetings. We carry the sting of a critical comment from a colleague into our evening meal with family. We are constantly allowing the ripples from a past disturbance to disrupt the stillness of the present. We believe we are processing or learning from these events by replaying them, but more often than not, we are simply re-experiencing the original pain, etching the groove of suffering deeper into our minds. Think of your mind as a clear sky. Each event, each interaction is a cloud that passes through. Some are small and white, others are large and dark. Ekido's mistake was to fixate on one dark cloud, to follow it with his gaze, to analyze its shape and color and meaning long after it had drifted past. He allowed it to obscure the vast, clear blue that was always there just behind it. Tanzin, on the other hand, acknowledged the cloud, saw it for what it was, a temporary formation, and then returned his gaze to the unchanging sky. Letting go is not an act of forgetting. Ekido would never forget the woman at the river. In fact, the memory was now transformed from a source of torment into a profound teaching. Letting go is an act of changing your relationship with the memory. It is the release of the emotional charge, the judgment, the story you have attached to it. It is allowing the memory to be what it is, a completed event in the past, without allowing it to define your present reality. The event itself is neutral. It is our carrying of it that gives it weight and power. As you settle more deeply into rest, allow yourself to become aware of the sky of your mind. Notice if there are any clouds you are still tracking from the day that has passed. You don't need to fight them or push them away. Simply acknowledge their presence. Ah, there is the cloud of that difficult conversation. There is the cloud of that moment of frustration. And then, with a gentle intention, let them go. Let them drift. Return your awareness to the vast, peaceful, open space of your mind itself. This is your true nature, not the passing clouds of thought and emotion, but the boundless, clear sky in which they appear. The peace you seek is not in a future where there are no more clouds, but in the present moment discovery that you are, and have always been, the sky. The day is over. The river has been crossed. There is nothing left to carry. Allow your body and your mind to be light, to be free. Rest in the vast, quiet expanse of your own being. Part 4. The river that flows to the sea. We have learned to open our clenched fist, to see the emptiness of the boats that bump against us, and to leave the past on the riverbank behind us. With each step, we have become lighter, more free. But what is the nature of this path we are on? What is the force that guides our journey? To understand this, we must turn our gaze to one of nature's greatest teachers of letting go, the river. For our life, like a river, has a course, a current, and an ultimate destination, and its greatest wisdom lies not in fighting its path, but in surrendering to its flow. Imagine the very beginning, high in the mountains, hidden amongst ancient moss-covered rocks. A single drop of water emerges from the dark earth, then another, and another. A tiny, silent seep becomes a trickle. This is the source, the river's birth. At first it has no clear direction. It is just a dampness on the stones, a fragile thread of moisture finding its way through cracks and crevices. It is pure potential, small and uncertain. This is like the beginning of our own lives. We arrive, small and new, and begin to move, and almost immediately we encounter obstacles. For the tiny stream, the first obstacle is a pebble. It pools behind it, a tiny puddle of frustration. It pushes, but the pebble does not move. Its next obstacle is the gnarled root of a pine tree, a thick, unyielding barrier across its path. The water, in its infancy, knows only one way, forward. It pushes against the root, its small energy spent in a futile effort. This is the beginning of our own pattern of struggle. We meet a challenge, an obstacle in our path, and our first instinct is to force our way through. We believe that with enough effort, enough willpower, we can make the world bend to our desires. We try to push the pebble. We try to break the root. And in this struggle, we find our first taste of suffering. We exhaust ourselves, believing that resistance is strength. But the river is a patient teacher. It does not fight the root for long. It learns a new wisdom. The water continues to seep from the earth, and as it pulls against the root, it begins to spread. It finds a small opening to the left, a path of less resistance, and it flows there. It does not judge the root. It does not resent the pebble. It simply accepts them as part of the landscape and flows around them. This is its first great lesson. Yielding is not weakness. To flow around an obstacle is not to be defeated by it. It is to be wise. It is to conserve one's energy for the long journey ahead. As the stream continues its descent, it grows. Other trickles join it, adding their small measure of water to its own. It becomes a chattering brook, dancing and tumbling over stones, its voice a happy, gurgling sound in the quiet of the forest. It learns to navigate a world of constant change. A fallen log blocks its way, and the water rises, spilling over the top in a miniature waterfall. A dry season comes, and the brook shrinks, finding its way through the deepest channels of its bed, patient and persistent. A season of heavy rain arrives, and it swells, becoming a rushing force that clears away loose stones and old leaves, reshaping its own banks. Through it all, the water never holds on. It does not cling to the quiet pool where it rested for a moment. It does not try to go back up the waterfall it just tumbled down. It is always, and only, moving forward, guided by the simple, inexorable law of gravity. It is completely present in each moment of its journey. When it is a quiet pool, it is fully a quiet pool. When it is a rushing cascade, it is fully a rushing cascade. It has no memory of what it was and no anxiety about what it will become. It simply is. Now imagine the river as it leaves the high mountains and enters the wide, open plains. It is no longer a small brook. It has been joined by countless other streams and tributaries. It has become a great river, wide and deep and powerful. Its movement is no longer frantic or hurried. It flows with a slow, majestic, and undeniable force. Its voice is no longer a chatter, but a deep, resonant hum, the sound of immense power moving with effortless grace. This great river carries everything with it. A bright yellow leaf from a willow tree lands on its surface and is carried along. A heavy, waterlogged branch falls from a collapsing bank and is swept into the river current. The fine silt from the mountains, the pollen from the fields, the reflection of the passing clouds. The river accepts them all. It does not complain that the branch is too heavy or that the silt makes its waters murky. It does not try to hold on to the beautiful reflection of the full moon. It receives all things, and it lets all things go. They are all just temporary passengers on its journey to the sea. This is the wisdom of non-resistance in its fullness. So much of our anxiety comes from trying to control the contents of our own river. We want to hold on to the pleasant things, the happy moments, the feelings of success, the beautiful reflections. And we want to push away the unpleasant things, the sorrows, the failures, the heavy branches of grief. We spend our lives in this constant struggle, trying to curate the contents of our experience, clinging to this and resisting that. And it is this very struggle that disturbs our peace. The river teaches us a different way. It teaches us to become the river itself, to allow the moments of our lives, the joys and the sorrows, to flow through us without clinging and without resistance, to know that they are all temporary. The beautiful leaf will eventually be deposited on a distant shore. The heavy branch will one day sink to the bottom. They are not us. We are the flow. We are the current that carries all things on their way. When we can rest in this understanding, a profound relaxation becomes possible. We can let go of the exhausting job of being the river's gatekeeper. We can stop fighting the current. We can trust the flow. We know that the river of our life has its own intelligence, its own wisdom. It knows how to navigate the landscape, the twists and turns that seem like mistakes or detours from our limited vantage point on the bank are, from the perspective of the river itself, simply the path of least resistance, the wisest way forward. We don't need to control everything. We only need to allow ourselves to be carried. Now, the river's journey is nearing its end. It approaches the coast. The land flattens, and the river's pace slows even more. It spreads out, forming a wide estuary. Here, something new happens. For the first time, the river tastes the salt of the sea. The incoming tide pushes its way up the river's mouth, mingling the fresh water with the salt. The two begin to merge. The distinction between river and sea becomes blurred. The water is no longer just river, but it is not yet fully sea. It is in a state of transition, a place of profound and peaceful surrender. The river does not fear this. It does not fight the tide. It does not try to hold on to its identity as a freshwater river, separate and distinct from the ocean. Its entire journey, from that first drop of water in the high mountains, has been leading to this moment. Every rock it flowed around, every valley it carved, every leaf it carried was part of this inexorable, sacred journey home. To resist now would be to deny its own nature. This is the ultimate letting go. It is the letting go of the self. We spend so much of our lives building and defending our identity, our sense of being a separate, individual self. We are the river, and we are proud of our unique journey. But there comes a time when the wisest and most peaceful thing we can do is to allow that sense of separateness to soften, to dissolve into something far greater than ourselves. And finally, the river meets the ocean. With a final, gentle sigh, it pours itself into the boundless expanse of the sea. In that moment, the river is gone. There is no more river. There is only the ocean. But has the river been lost? Has it been destroyed? No. It has become that which it was always seeking. The individual drop of water has returned to its source. The journey is complete. All the struggles, all the twists and turns are resolved in this vast, unified peace. The river has not lost its life. It has merged with a life that is infinitely larger. As you lie here, on the edge of sleep, feel yourself as this river. The day has been your journey. You have flowed through moments of ease and moments of difficulty. You have encountered obstacles. You have carried joys and burdens. But now, your journey for today is over. You have arrived at the shore of the night. Your bed is the great, peaceful ocean of rest. There is no need to hold on to your identity as a person with a name, a history, a list of things to do tomorrow. You can let all of that go, just as the river lets go of its banks and its name when it meets the sea. You can allow the boundaries of yourself to soften and dissolve. Feel the current of your breath slowing down, like the river in the estuary. With each exhale, feel yourself flowing a little further out, a little further into the vast, calm waters of sleep. Let go of the need to control your thoughts. Let them be like the flotsam on the river's surface, gently carried away and released into the great expanse. You do not need to follow them. Trust in this process. Your body knows how to sleep, just as the river knows how to find the sea. It is a natural, effortless homecoming. You do not need to strive for it. You only need to allow it. Surrender to the gentle, gravitational pull of rest. Let go of the banks. Let go of the current. Let go of the journey. Merge with the deep, dark, healing peace of the ocean. You are not losing yourself. You are returning home. This surrender is not a passive act of giving up, but an active, courageous trust. It is the highest form of wisdom. The river does not know the entire map of its journey from the start. It cannot see the sea from its source in the mountains. It simply trusts the pull of gravity, the immediate, present moment guidance that tells it which way is down. It navigates one rock, one fallen log, one gentle bend at a time. In our own lives, we often cause ourselves great anxiety by trying to see the entire map. We want to know what the river of our life will look like 10 years from now. We worry about the rapids and waterfalls that might lie around a bend we cannot yet see. We try to force the river into a channel we have engineered in our minds, a channel that we believe is safer, straighter, or more scenic. We build dams of control, levees of expectation. But life, like a river, is a wild and powerful force. Our dams often break under the pressure, causing more devastation than if we had allowed the water to find its own course. Our levees are breached by the unexpected floods of change. The practice of flowing is a practice of letting go of the need for a map. It is about cultivating a deep trust in the present moment. It is about learning to listen to the subtle, gravitational pull of our own inner wisdom, which, like the river's instinct for the sea, is always guiding us toward wholeness. When we are faced with a decision, an obstacle, instead of trying to calculate every possible outcome, we can ask ourselves a simpler question. What is the path of least resistance right now? Not the path of laziness, but the path of wisdom, the path that feels like a flowing around rather than a crashing against. Consider the texture of this flow. It is not always smooth. The river tumbles over rocks, creating white water and turbulence. It falls from cliffs, creating mist and rainbows. It slows in deep, silent pools, its surface reflecting the sky like a mirror. Our lives have these same textures. There are moments of chaos and intensity, moments of great release and beauty, and moments of profound, reflective stillness. The wisdom of the river is to embrace them all as part of the journey. The turbulence is not a mistake. The stillness is not the final destination. They are simply different ways the water moves on its way to the sea. When we are in a period of turbulence, caught in the rapids of change or difficulty, we can remember that this is just the river navigating a steep and rocky passage. The energy is high, the movement is fast, but the current is still heading downstream. Our task is not to try and stop the rapids, but to learn to be a skillful kayaker, to stay centered in our boat, to keep our balance, and to trust that the river will carry us through to the calmer waters ahead. When we find ourselves in a deep, quiet pool, a time of peace and stillness in our lives, we can rest in it fully. We can enjoy the clarity, the reflection, the sense of peace. But we do not try to build a dam to hold it there forever. We know that the pool is just a resting place, and that soon the current will gently pull us forward again, continuing the journey. We learn to hold our joys lightly, appreciating them while they are here, and letting them go without grasping when it is time to move on. This is the heart of impermanence. Nothing in the river is ever static. The water that touches your hand is here for only a second, and then it is gone forever, replaced by new water. The banks are constantly being reshaped, eroded here, built up there. The very course of the river changes over centuries. To be at peace is to align ourselves with this fundamental truth of existence. Everything flows. Everything changes. Our suffering arises from our attempt to stand on the bank and demand that the river stop flowing. or to grab a handful of water and try to keep it. As you lie here, feel the river of your own breath. It is a constant, gentle flow. The in-breath is the gathering of water, the source. The out-breath is the release, the flowing out toward the sea. You do not have to command your breath to flow. It happens on its own, guided by a wisdom deeper than your conscious mind. Let your attention rest on this simple, natural rhythm. Let it be your teacher. With every inhale, feel the gentle gathering of energy. With every exhale, feel the complete release, the letting go, the surrender to the downward pull of relaxation and sleep. Your breath is the current, and it is carrying you now, out of the busy landscape of the day, out of the narrow channel of your individual worries, and into the vast, boundless ocean of rest. There is no need to struggle. There is no need to control. The journey of this day is complete. The river has reached the sea. Allow yourself to dissolve into this great peace. Let the boundaries of your body soften. Let the definitions of your mind fade. You are not just the drop. You are the entire ocean. And in this ocean, there is only stillness, silence, and a deep, restorative peace. Rest now. Flow into the quiet, endless depths of a perfect sleep. Part 5. Releasing the self, the weight of identity. The river has found the sea, letting go of its name and its banks to merge with the vast, peaceful whole. This is the final and most subtle letting go we can explore. It is the release of the most precious thing we believe we possess, ourself. From the moment we are small, we begin to build this self. We gather materials from the world around us and construct an identity, a fortress of personality. We use bricks of our name, our family, our profession. We use mortar made of our accomplishments, our failures, our memories, and our beliefs. We decorate the walls with our likes and dislikes, our talents, and our perceived flaws. This construction, this me, feels solid and real. It gives us a place to stand in the world. But it is also a great weight. We must constantly maintain this fortress. We polish the bricks of our successes. We hide the cracks of our insecurities. We defend the walls against the opinions of others. We live in a state of low-grade anxiety, worried that our identity might be threatened, damaged, or revealed to be less grand than we pretend. We become so identified with the fortress that we forget we are not the bricks and mortar. We are the consciousness that lives within it. The weight of this identity, this fixed and rigid idea of who we are, can be the heaviest burden of all. Tonight, we will tell a story about dismantling this fortress, not to be left with nothing, but to discover the boundless freedom of the open sky. In a small temple known for its mastery of the art of calligraphy, there lived a young and prodigiously talented artist named Haru. From a very young age, Haru's gift was apparent. His hand was steady, his eye was sharp, and his spirit seemed to understand the deep connection between the ink, the brush, and the soul of the character being drawn. By the time he was a young man, his fame had spread. People would travel for days just to see his work. His calligraphy was not merely writing, it was a performance of perfection. Each stroke was flawless, each character a perfect balance of strength and grace. Haru's identity was completely fused with his art. He was not just a man who did calligraphy, he was Haru, the great calligrapher. This was the central pillar of the fortress of his self, When people praised his work, they were praising him. When he looked at his finished pieces, he saw a reflection of his own worth, his own excellence. But this identity was a heavy one. Before each new piece, he felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. Would it be as good as the last? Would he live up to his own reputation? He spent hours in meticulous preparation, not just out of respect for the art, but out of fear of failure. His art, which should have been a source of joy and expression, had also become the source of his deepest anxiety. His master was an old Zen teacher named Kaido, a man whose own calligraphy was famously simple, almost childlike, yet possessed a life and energy that Haru's perfect creations seemed to lack. Master Kaido saw the great talent in his student, but he also saw the great burden he carried. He saw that Haru was trapped inside the beautiful fortress of his own skill. One morning, Kaido summoned Haru to the quiet, sunlit calligraphy room. The air smelled of old wood and fragrant black ink. He gestured for Haru to sit, and then he made a simple request. "Haru," he said, his voice calm and clear as a temple bell. "For many years you have shown me beautiful characters, beautiful words, beautiful poems. Today, I want you to show me something different. I want you to show me your true self." Haru felt a surge of pride and confidence. This was a challenge he was ready for. His true self, he thought, was his art. It was his perfection, his control, his mastery of the brush. He would create the single greatest character of his life. A piece so perfect it would radiate his very essence. He bowed deeply to his master and set to work. He took his time, performing the ritual he knew so well. He carefully selected the finest sheet of rice paper, its surface smooth and white as fresh snow. He took his favorite ink stick, a gift from a famous scholar, and began to grind it on the stone, adding water drop by drop, his movements precise and meditative. The ink became a pool of liquid darkness, its scent filling the room. He chose his most treasured brush, its handle worn smooth from years of use. He centered himself, took a deep, slow breath, and for a moment the world disappeared. There was only him, the brush, and the paper. Then, with a movement that was both swift and certain, he painted the character for clarity. The strokes were magnificent. The lines were bold and unwavering. The balance was perfect. The final form a masterpiece of technical skill. It was, he thought, the best work he had ever done. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This character was him, clear, strong, and perfect. He respectfully placed the paper before Master Kaito and waited for the praise he was sure would come. Master Kaito looked at the calligraphy for a long time. He nodded his head slowly. "The brushwork is exquisite, Haru," he said. "The balance is perfect. This is a beautiful drawing of the word clarity." He paused, then looked directly into Haru's eyes. "But it is not you. It is just ink on paper. Show me you." Haru was stunned. He felt a flush of confusion and shame. How could the master not see? This was him. He had poured his entire being into that single character. But he was a devoted student. He bowed again, collected himself, and decided he must have misunderstood. Perhaps the master wanted something more philosophical. He prepared again. This time, he chose to paint the character for emptiness. He tried to empty his mind, to channel the profound Zen concept onto the paper. The result was another technical marvel, a character that seemed to shimmer with a deep, mysterious quality. He presented it to the master. Kaito studied it as he had the first. "A very clever idea, Haru," he said, his voice gentle. "You have captured the concept of emptiness beautifully, but a concept is not a person. This is an idea you have learned. It is not you. Show me you." Now, Haru's anxiety began to grow. The foundation of his identity was cracking. If his perfect art was not him, then who was he? He tried again and again. He painted his own name, Haru, with powerful, confident strokes. "This is a label," the master said. "A sound that people call you by. It is not you." He painted a picture of a bamboo stalk, strong and flexible, a quality he admired and hoped he possessed. "This is an aspiration," the master said, "something you wish to be. It is not you." He painted a memory from his childhood, a small boat on a lake. "This is a memory," the master said, "a ghost from the past. It is not you." With each attempt, another brick was pulled from Haru's fortress. His skill, his philosophy, his name, his aspirations, his memories, all of them were dismissed. Everything he thought he was not him. The pile of rejected papers grew around him. His confidence crumbled, replaced by a gnawing frustration, then a deep despair. He had no idea what to do. He had nothing left to show. He was empty. He sat for hours in the silent room, surrounded by the ghosts of his failed attempts. The sun set, and the room filled with the soft gray light of dusk. He felt like a complete failure. The great calligrapher, Haru, was a fraud, an illusion. Without his talent, he was nothing. He sat in this feeling of nothingness, too exhausted and defeated to even think. He was no longer trying to be anyone or show anyone anything. He was just a man, sitting in a darkening room, breathing. The struggle was over. In this profound stillness, born of complete surrender, he became aware of the world around him in a new way. He heard the gentle chirp of a cricket outside the window. He felt the cool evening air on his skin. He saw the way the moonlight cast a silver rectangle on the wooden floor. He was not Haru the calligrapher experiencing these things. He was just experience itself. The watcher and the watched had become one. Master Kaito entered the room, his footsteps silent on the floorboards. He saw the change in his student. The tense, proud posture was gone, replaced by a soft, open stillness. He lit a single candle, its warm light pushing back the shadows. He placed a fresh sheet of paper in front of Haru. "Try one more time," Kaito said softly. "But this time, do not try to show me anything. Do not try to be a great artist. Do not even try to be a good student. Forget your name. Forget your skill. Just let your hand move." Haru looked at the empty paper. He felt no anxiety, no ambition. He felt nothing but the simple reality of the moment. He picked up the brush. It did not feel like a tool of a master, but simply a piece of bamboo with bristles. He dipped it in the ink. His mind was empty of plans and ideas. He simply brought the brush to the paper. His hand moved. It was not a movement he commanded, but one he allowed. The brush danced across the page in a single fluid, spontaneous gesture, creating a circle. It was an enso, the Zen circle of enlightenment, but it was not a perfect one. The circle did not quite close. The ink was thick in one spot and pale in another. The line trembled slightly. By all the standards of his past work, it was a failure. It was imperfect, flawed, and utterly human. He stared at the circle. It was not a representation of something. It was the thing itself. It was the track of a single unrepeatable moment of his life, recorded in ink. It was the mark of his own breathing, his own heartbeat, his own imperfect alive presence. It held more truth than all of his perfect characters combined. He looked up at his master, his eyes filled with a new quiet understanding.
Master Kaito smiled, a deep, warm smile that seemed to light up the room. He pointed to the imperfect circle. "Ah," he said, "there you are. As you lie here, preparing for sleep, feel the weight of the fortress you have built.
The name you answer to. The roles you play. Parent, child, worker, friend. The stories you tell yourself. I am a strong person. I am an anxious person. I am a success. I am a failure. These are all just characters painted on paper. They are beautiful. They are complex. They are useful. But they are not the totality of who you are. And they are very heavy. Tonight, you have permission to set them down. As you settle into your bed, imagine you are taking off a heavy suit of armor, piece by piece. First, take off the helmet of your name and your reputation, for tonight you do not need them. Next, unbuckle the breastplate of your profession, your accomplishments, your responsibilities. They will be there for you in the morning. For now, you can be free of their weight. Take off the greaves of your past, the memories and regrets that you carry on your legs. Take off the gauntlets of your future, the plans and worries that you hold in your hands. Let them all lie on the floor beside your bed. And what is left? What is here when all the labels are removed? There is just this: a body, breathing, a presence, resting. You are not the armor. You are the vulnerable, soft, living being that the armor was built to protect. In sleep, you do not need this protection. You can be completely, safely yourself. And what is that self? It is not a fixed thing. It is a flow, a process, a mystery. It is the hand that moves the brush, not the mark that is left behind. Releasing the self is not an act of destruction. It is an act of liberation. It is the discovery of a peace that does not depend on being a certain kind of person. It is the freedom to simply be. Allow yourself to dissolve into this freedom now. Let go of the effort of being you. Simply rest in the quiet, spacious awareness that you are. Like Haru's final circle, you do not need to be perfect. You only need to be present. And in that presence, you will find a peace deeper than any identity, a rest that restores you to your true, unadorned nature. Haru's journey did not end with that single imperfect circle. In fact, it was a new beginning. In the days and weeks that followed, his relationship with his art, and therefore with himself, was transformed. He continued to practice calligraphy every day, but the feeling behind the practice was entirely different. The desperate need for perfection was gone. The fear of failure had vanished. He no longer felt the crushing weight of his own reputation. He began to find a strange new beauty in imperfection. He noticed that the most ancient and revered pieces of calligraphy, the ones that truly felt alive, were rarely technically perfect. They had drips of ink, hesitant strokes, moments of unexpected wildness. These were not mistakes. They were evidence of a human hand, a living spirit, moving in a single, unrepeatable moment in time. His own work began to change. It became looser, more expressive, more alive. Sometimes he would create a character that was technically flawless, and it felt empty. Other times he would create one with a shaky line or an unbalanced form, and it would pulse with a vibrant, undeniable energy. He was learning to value truth over perfection. This is a profound shift that we can all experience. We are taught from a young age to present a perfect, polished version of ourselves to the world. We curate our images on social media. We choose our words carefully in conversation. We try to hide our flaws and insecurities. We are essentially trying to paint perfect characters of ourselves,
just as Haru did. But this is an exhausting performance. The real connection, the real beauty, lies in our shared, imperfect humanity. The release of a fixed identity allows for a new kind of intimacy with the world. When Haru was the great calligrapher, he was separate from others. He was on a pedestal, a position that is both lonely and precarious. When he let go of that role, he became just a man, like any other. He could connect with the baker, the farmer, the woodcutter, not as a famous artist, but as a fellow human being. He found that there was more joy in a simple conversation with a friend than in the thunderous applause of a crowd. This does not mean we lose our skills or our unique qualities. Haru did not stop being a talented calligrapher. In fact, his talent deepened, becoming a channel for something more authentic and profound. Releasing the self is not about becoming a formless, characterless blob. It is about holding our identities more lightly. It is about understanding that our roles, our skills, and our stories are like clothes that we wear. They are useful, they can be beautiful, but they are not our skin. We can change them. We can take them off. The being underneath the clothes is what is essential. As you lie here, feel the truth of this in your own being. During the day, you wear many different sets of clothes. You have your work clothes, your family clothes, your friend clothes. Now, at the end of the day, you can take them all off. You can let go of the performance. In the quiet darkness of your room, there is no one you need to be. There is no role you need to play. This can feel a little frightening at first, like stepping out of the house without a key, not knowing if you can get back in. But the truth is, the fortress of the self is not a solid structure. It is made of thought. And you can rebuild it or change it whenever you need to. The roles and responsibilities will be waiting for you in the morning, ready to be put on again. But for now, you can rest in the space that exists before all of those labels. This space is pure potential. It is the clean, white rice paper before the brush has touched it. It is open, silent, and full of peace. By resting in this space each night, you are not losing yourself. You are returning to your source. You are clearing the slate. This allows you to wake up in the morning feeling not just physically rested, but spiritually refreshed, ready to engage with the world not as a rigid statue, but as a living, flowing, and ever-changing work of art. You are the circle that is always being drawn, never quite perfect, never quite complete. And that is where your true, dynamic beauty lies. Rest in this beautiful, imperfect, and liberating truth. Part 6, The Cup of Tea, Letting Go of a Full Mind. We have released the weight of our fixed identity, letting go of the heavy armor of who we think we are. We have found a certain freedom in this, a lightness, but even without the armor, the mind itself can be a fortress. It can be a room so filled with old furniture, our opinions, our beliefs, our accumulated knowledge, that there is no space for anything new to enter. We come to each moment with a mind that is already full, and so we can never truly experience it. We see the world not as it is, but through the dense filter of our own preconceptions. The peace we seek requires an empty space, a willingness to not know. This is a story about a cup of tea and the profound wisdom of emptying our minds to make room for the truth. Imagine a university professor, a man named Kenjiro, who lived in a bustling city in the late 19th century. Kenjiro was a brilliant scholar of philosophy and religion. His mind was a vast library, filled with the works of the great thinkers of both the East and the West. He had read all the sutras, memorized countless scriptures, and could debate the finest points of doctrine for hours on end. He had written acclaimed books on the nature of reality and the path to enlightenment. He was, by all accounts, an expert. Yet for all his knowledge, Kenjiro was not a happy man. A quiet dis-ease hummed beneath the surface of his intellectual confidence. The peace and liberation he read about in his books felt like a distant country he had only seen on a map. He could describe the taste of water in exquisite detail, but he was still thirsty. He understood intellectually that his knowledge was a collection of concepts, of signposts pointing toward the moon. But he had become so fascinated with the signposts that he had forgotten to look at the moon itself. He began to hear tales of a Zen master named Nanin, who lived in a small, remote temple in the mountains, a few days' journey from the city. Nanin was not a scholar. It was said he had never written a single word, but those who visited him spoke of a man whose very presence was a teaching, a man who embodied the wisdom that Kenjiro had only ever read about. A seed of humility began to sprout in the professor's well-tended intellectual garden. He decided he must visit this master. He would go, not as a colleague to debate, but as a student to learn. He packed a small bag, but his mind was far from empty. It was filled with everything he already knew about Zen. He had a list of sophisticated questions he planned to ask.
The master. He had theories he wanted to test. He was going to learn, yes, but he was also going to display his own considerable understanding. He was going to show the old master that he was no ordinary, ignorant seeker. The journey was long and arduous. The path grew steep and narrow, winding its way through dense forests of bamboo and cedar. The sounds of the city faded, replaced by the cry of birds and the rush of mountain streams. By the time Kenjiro arrived at the temple, he was weary and humbled by the raw, untamed beauty of the mountains. The temple was a simple rustic structure of dark wood, its roof gently curved, seeming to grow organically from the mountainside. It was utterly unimposing, yet it radiated a profound sense of peace. He was greeted at the gate by a young monk who led him through a small, meticulously raked gravel garden to a simple room where the master was waiting. Nan-in was a small, elderly man with a bald head and a face etched with 1,000 gentle wrinkles. He sat quietly, mending a torn piece of his robe. He looked up as Kenjiro entered, and his eyes, clear and bright as a child's, seemed to look right through the professor's scholarly facade and into the heart of his spiritual thirst. Kenjiro, feeling a little flustered by the master's direct and simple gaze, immediately began to speak. He introduced himself, listed his academic credentials, and mentioned the books he had written. He then launched into a long and eloquent discourse on the nature of Zen, quoting ancient masters and explaining complex philosophical concepts. He spoke of emptiness, of non-duality, of the nature of consciousness. He was filling the quiet room with his knowledge, building a wall of words around himself. Nan-in listened patiently. He did not interrupt. He did not ask any questions. He simply sat, his hands resting in his lap, his gentle gaze never leaving the professor's face. He listened with an attention so complete, it was like a vast, silent space. Kenjiro, accustomed to being the center of attention in a lecture hall, found himself becoming more and more uncomfortable in this silent, receptive presence.
His words began to sound hollow, even to his own ears. He was talking about the river, but Nan-in was the river. He was talking about the sky, but Nan-in was the sky. Finally, his long speech trickled to a halt. He felt foolish and exposed. A long silence settled in the room, broken only by the sound of a kettle beginning to sing softly over a charcoal brazier in the corner. Nan-in smiled, a warm, gentle smile. "You have come a long way," he said, his voice quiet and unassuming. "You must be thirsty. Let us have some tea." He rose with a slow, graceful movement and went to the brazier. Every action was simple, direct, and full of a quiet dignity. He warmed the small earthenware cups. He measured the green tea leaves into the pot. He poured the hot water, and the fresh, clean scent of the tea filled the room.
He brought the tea tray and knelt before Kenjiro. He placed a cup in front of the professor. It was a simple, beautiful cup, its glaze a deep, earthy brown. Then he picked up the teapot and began to pour. The pale green tea flowed into the cup. Kenjiro watched, ready to receive it. Nan-in poured until the cup was full, and then he kept pouring. The tea reached the brim of the cup, and then it began to overflow. It spilled over the sides, running down onto the saucer. The saucer filled up, and still Nan-in kept pouring. The hot tea now spilled from the saucer onto the tatami mat, creating a dark, spreading stain. Kenjiro watched in astonishment, and then in alarm. What was the master doing? Was he mad? Was this some kind of insult? Finally, he could not contain himself any longer. "Master," he cried out, "stop! The cup is full. It is overflowing. No more will go in." Nan-in stopped pouring. He set the teapot down. He looked at the overflowing cup, and then he looked at Kenjiro, his bright, clear eyes holding a profound and gentle lesson. "You," he said softly, "are like this cup. You have come to me with your mind already full. It is overflowing with your own opinions, your own ideas, your own speculations. How can I show you anything of Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The words landed in Kenjiro's mind with the force of a thunderclap. In that instant, he understood everything. He saw his own arrogance, his own intellectual pride. He had come not to receive, but to add more to what he already had. He had been so proud of his full cup, he never realized that its fullness was the very thing preventing him from tasting anything new. His knowledge had become a barrier, not a bridge, to true understanding. He looked at the mess on the floor, the wasted tea. It was a perfect image of his own mind, a cluttered, overflowing state that could not receive the simple, direct truth of the present moment. He felt a wave of shame, but it was quickly followed by a profound sense of liberation. He did not have to be the expert. He did not have to know all the answers. In fact, it was his attachment to knowing that had been the source of his suffering. The path forward was not to add more, but to take away. The path was to become empty. He bowed his head, a deep, genuine bow of a true student, his forehead touching the mat. "Thank you, Master," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Please, teach me how to empty my cup." Nan-in simply smiled and poured him a fresh cup of tea. This time, he stopped when it was full. And as Kenjiro picked up the cup, his hands trembling slightly, and took his first sip, it was as if he were tasting tea for the very first time. It was just tea.
simple, warm, and real. And it was the most profound teaching he had ever received. As you lie here now, preparing for the deep rest of sleep, feel the state of your own cup. Your mind, like Kenjiro's, has been filled throughout the day. It is full of the day's events, the conversations you had, the information you consumed, the worries that arose, the plans you made for tomorrow. It is full of opinions about yourself, about others, about the world. It is a very, very full cup. And you may be trying to pour sleep into this already full cup. You may be trying to add relaxation on top of a mind that is overflowing with agitation. It cannot be done. As the Master showed, no more will go in. So, the first step toward peaceful sleep is not to add anything, but to gently, without judgment, begin to empty your cup. You do not need to force the contents out. You can simply, with your intention, tip the cup. Let the thoughts, the worries, the plans of the day begin to pour out. Imagine them flowing away from you, like the tea onto the tatami mat, absorbed by the quiet earth of the night, leaving no stain. Let go of your opinions. For tonight, you don't need to be right or wrong. Let go of your beliefs. They are just ideas, furniture in the room of your mind. You can let them be. Let go of your knowledge. You have learned much, but in this moment, the wisdom is in not knowing. Each exhale is an opportunity to empty the cup a little more. With each breath out, release a thought, release a memory, release an expectation. Feel the space that begins to open up inside you. It might feel unfamiliar at first, this emptiness. We are so used to the constant chatter, the fullness, that the silence can feel strange. But stay with it. This is the space where peace can finally enter. This emptiness is not a void. It is not a nothingness. It is a state of pure potentiality. It is the open, receptive mind of a beginner, ready to experience the world directly, without a filter. It is the quiet mind that can finally hear the subtle whispers of its own deep wisdom. It is the mind that can truly rest. As you continue to empty your cup, you make space for sleep to naturally arise and fill you. Sleep is not something you can grasp or force. It is something you receive. It can only enter a mind that is open and empty. So let go of the effort. Let go of the need to understand. Let go of everything you think you know. Become the empty cup and allow the deep, restorative, and peaceful tea of a good night's sleep to be poured into you, filling you completely until the morning comes. Rest in this quiet, open, and receptive emptiness. Kenjiro stayed with Nanin for many months, but the master gave him very few verbal teachings. The real lessons were in the living, in the simple, mindful acts of the everyday. His primary practice was not to study more texts, but to empty his cup, over and over again. He swept the temple paths, focusing only on the feel of the bamboo broom and the sight of the leaves gathering. He washed the rice, feeling the cool water and the texture of the grains in his hands. He chopped wood, his mind absorbed in the rhythm of the axe and the sharp, clean scent of the pine.
At first his mind rebelled. It was a mind accustomed to constant, complex stimulation. It wanted to analyze, to categorize, to debate. While sweeping, it would start composing a lecture on the symbolism of the Zen garden. While washing rice, it would recall philosophical arguments about purity and defilement.
His cup, it seemed, had a habit of refilling itself as quickly as he tried to empty it. He spoke to Nanin about this frustration. "Master," he said one afternoon, "I try to empty my mind as you showed me, but it fills up again instantly. My thoughts are like an endless spring. I feel I am making no progress." Nanin was tending to a small bonsai tree, his gnarled fingers gently snipping a tiny branch. He did not look up immediately. He finished his cut, carefully placed the clippers down, and then turned his calm gaze to Kenjiro. "You are trying to empty your cup by fighting with the water that is in it," he said. "You are trying to push the thoughts out. This is just another kind of fullness, the fullness of struggle. Do not fight with the thoughts. Do not try to get rid of them." Kenjiro was confused. "But Master, you told me I must empty my cup." "Yes," Nanin replied, "but a cup is not emptied by force. Watch." He picked up an empty teacup and held it out in the gentle rain that was falling. The cup began to fill with clear, fresh rainwater. "Is the cup filling?" he asked. "Yes, Master," Kenjiro replied. "Now," Nanin said, and he simply turned the cup over. The water poured out in a single, effortless stream. He held the upside-down cup in the rain. A few drops might cling to the rim, but it could no longer be filled. "The cup is not fighting the rain," Nanin explained. "It is simply open and surrendered in a new way. To empty your mind is not to stop the rain of thoughts. That is impossible. The rain will always fall. To empty your mind is to change your posture towards them. It is to turn the cup of your attention upside down." This was a revelation for Kenjiro. He had been treating his thoughts as enemies to be vanquished. He now understood that he simply needed to stop holding them. A thought arises. Instead of grabbing it, analyzing it, following it down a long chain of associations, which is like holding the cup upright to catch the rain, he could simply let it go. He could let it fall through his awareness without being caught. He could turn his attention away from the thought and back to the sensation of his breath, or the feeling of the broom in his hands. He was not suppressing the thought. He was simply choosing not to serve it tea. He was letting the cup of his mind be open at the bottom. This is a practice we can all use as we prepare for sleep. The rain of thoughts often becomes a downpour at night. The mind, free from the distractions of the day, begins to present us with its entire collection of worries, memories, and plans. We often engage with these
thoughts, believing that if we just think about a problem long enough, we can solve it. We hold our cup right side up, catching every drop, until it is overflowing with anxiety, and we cannot sleep. The wisdom of Nanin invites a different approach. When a thought arises, a worry about a meeting tomorrow, a regret about something you said today, see it for what it is, a single drop of rain. You do not have to catch it. You can simply notice it. Ah, a thought about the meeting. And then gently turn the cup of your attention over. Let the thought fall away. Return your attention to the physical sensation of your body resting in bed. Feel the weight of the blankets. Feel the softness of the pillow. Feel the gentle rhythmic rising and falling of your chest. Each time you do this, you are practicing the art of emptying your cup. You are not fighting your mind. You are simply withdrawing your engagement with the content of your thoughts. You are letting them pass like clouds in the sky, without getting on board each one for a journey. The goal is not to achieve a state of absolute thoughtlessness. The goal is to cultivate a state of non-engagement, a peaceful detachment. This practice creates a profound sense of inner spaciousness. When you are no longer constantly filling your mind with the re-chewing of the past and the pre-chewing of the future, you discover a quiet, peaceful presence that is always here, just beneath the surface of the mental chatter. This presence is your true nature. It is the empty cup itself, not the fleeting contents that pass through it. So, as you lie here, let the rain of thoughts fall. Do not be alarmed by them. Do not be frustrated by them. Simply let them come and let them go. With each thought that arises, practice this gentle turning over of the cup. Let it go and return to the breath. Let it go and return to the feeling of your body. Let it go and return to the quiet darkness of the room. With each release, the cup becomes a little more empty. The mind becomes a little more quiet. The body becomes a little more relaxed. You are creating the perfect, spacious conditions for sleep to arrive. You are not chasing sleep. You are not demanding it. You are simply preparing a quiet, empty room in your mind and opening the door for it to enter whenever it is ready. Rest in this practice. Rest in this gentle, continuous act of letting go. The cup is emptying. Peace is arriving. Part 7. The beauty of the broken teacup. Embracing imperfection. We have learned to empty our cup, to create a quiet, receptive space within our minds. But what do we do when the cup itself breaks? In our lives, we strive for a kind of perfection. We want our work to be flawless, our relationships to be seamless, our bodies to be healthy, our minds to be serene. We hold this ideal of a perfect, unbroken self, and we live in quiet fear of the cracks, the chips, the inevitable moments when life's fragility becomes apparent. A mistake at work, a harsh word in a loving relationship, a moment of weakness, an illness. These feel like failures, like blemishes on the smooth surface of who we are supposed to be. We try to hide them, to ignore them, or we despair over them. But there is an older, deeper wisdom that sees things differently. It is a wisdom that finds not shame, but a unique and profound beauty in the broken places. This is a story about a broken teacup and the art of mending it, not to hide the damage, but to honor it. It is a lesson in embracing our own beautiful imperfections. In a small village, famous for its delicate white porcelain, lived a potter named Hideo. Hideo was not just a craftsman, he was a purist, a perfectionist. His life was a relentless pursuit of the flawless form. He would spend weeks at his wheel, his hands covered in wet gray clay, his brow furrowed in concentration, seeking the perfect curve, the perfect thickness, the perfect balance. For every 100 pieces he threw, he would keep only one. The others, with their tiny, almost invisible flaws, a slight wobble in the rim, a pinprick in the glaze, were mercilessly smashed and returned to the earth. His identity was fired into his work. Hideo was his perfection. After decades of obsessive practice, he created his masterpiece. It was a teacup, but it was a teacup of such exquisite, simple beauty that it seemed to hold the silence of a winter morning. Its form was utterly perfect, its white glaze as smooth and luminous as the full moon. It felt weightless in the hand, yet it had a presence, a quiet dignity that commanded reverence. Hideo called it serenity. It was the culmination of his life's work, the perfect expression of his ideal. He placed it on a special shelf in his workshop, a testament to his own flawless skill. He would look at it with a deep sense of pride, but also with a constant gnawing anxiety. What if it fell? What if it chipped? The thought was unbearable. One day, a renowned tea master, the elderly and wise Sensei Akio, came to visit Hideo's workshop. He had heard of the potter's legendary skill. Hideo, with great ceremony, showed the master his work. Akio admired the pieces, nodding his appreciation for the technical mastery. Then Hideo, with trembling hands, brought out serenity. He presented it to the tea master as the pinnacle of his achievement. Sensei Akio held the cup. He felt its balance, admired its form, and looked at its flawless surface. He was silent for a long time. Then he looked at Hideo. "It is a work of extraordinary skill," he said, his voice gentle. "It is perfect. And because it is perfect, it is very cold. It knows nothing of life. It has no story to tell." Hideo was deeply offended. Cold? No story? This was the story of his life, of his dedication to perfection. He could not understand the master's words, and he dismissed them as the eccentric ramblings of an old man. A few weeks later, a young apprentice, a boy named Kenji who was eager but often clumsy, was sweeping the workshop. As he reached to dust the shelf where Serenity sat, his sleeve caught on a stack of bowls. They tumbled, and in the ensuing chaos, the perfect teacup was knocked from its perch. It fell to the hard earthen floor and shattered with a sound that broke Hideo's heart. Hideo rushed in and saw the pieces of his masterpiece lying in the dust, a white ruin. His face turned pale, then red with a terrible rage. He saw not just a broken cup, but the destruction of his life's meaning. He screamed at the terrified apprentice, his words full of venom and despair, and banished him from the workshop forever. For days, Hideo was consumed by grief. He could not work. He could not eat. He would simply sit and stare at the broken shards, which he had gathered in a small wooden box. To him, they were the remains of a dead dream. The perfection was gone, and with it, his own sense of worth. The cup was ruined. He was ruined. Word of the disaster reached Sensei Akio. One afternoon, the old tea master appeared at the door of the dark and silent workshop. He found Hideo sitting in a state of deep despair. Akio did not offer words of comfort or sympathy. He simply sat down beside the potter and asked to see the pieces. Hideo, with a gesture of hopelessness, pushed the wooden box toward him. Akio opened it and looked at the shards with great care and tenderness. He picked up a piece, turning it over in his hand, feeling its sharp, broken edge. "Ah," the master said softly. "Now it has a story. Now its life can begin." Hideo looked at him, his eyes full of confusion and anger. "Its life is over," he said bitterly. "It is worthless garbage." "No," said Akio. "It is only now that it has the chance to become truly beautiful. We will mend it." "Mend it?" Hideo scoffed. "It will never be perfect again. The cracks will always show. It will be a monument to failure." "The cracks," Akio said, his eyes twinkling, "are the important part. We will not hide them. We will illuminate them. We will mend this cup with gold." And so, the tea master began to teach the grieving potter the ancient art of kintsugi, which means to join with gold,
It is a philosophy as much as a craft, a practice that treats breakage and repair as part of the history of an object, rather than something to disguise. Their work began. It was a slow, meditative process. They first had to carefully clean each broken edge. Then, with painstaking patience, they began to fit the pieces back together, like a complex puzzle. Hideo, whose hands were used to the fluid creation of form from soft clay, now had to learn the discipline of reassembling a shattered reality. They used a special lacquer, called urushi, mixed with a fine rice flour to create a natural adhesive. Hideo applied the sticky lacquer to the edge of one piece and carefully joined it to another, holding them together until they bonded. It was a process that could not be rushed. It required a complete, focused presence. For the first time in weeks, Hideo's mind was quiet, absorbed in the simple, demanding task at hand. He was not thinking about his lost perfection. He was just feeling the way two broken edges could meet and become one again. After the cup was fully reassembled, a web of dark lacquer lines now tracing the paths of its destruction, they let it dry for many weeks in a warm, humid box. During this time, Hideo's heart began to soften. He was beginning to see the cup not as a ruined object, but as a survivor. He started to feel a strange affection for its new, scarred form. Finally, the day came to apply the gold. Akio showed Hideo how to mix pure, powdered gold into a small amount of the red lacquer, creating a shimmering, liquid gold paint. Then, with a very fine brush, Hideo began the final, transformative step. He carefully, lovingly, painted over every single crack, every line of repair, with the golden lacquer. As the lines of gold covered the dark seams of the lacquer, something magical happened. The cracks were not hidden. They were highlighted. The lines of breakage, once the source of Hideo's shame and despair, were now the most beautiful feature of the cup. They became golden rivers flowing through a landscape of white porcelain. The cup's history of trauma was not erased. It was illuminated, celebrated, made beautiful. When the final stroke was painted, Hideo held the mended cup in his hands. It was no longer serenity, the cold, perfect object. It was something more. It was warm, resilient, and infinitely more interesting. It held the light in a new way. The golden seams caught his eye, drawing him in. He could feel the slightly raised lines of the repair under his fingertips. The cup was more beautiful, not in spite of being broken, but because it had been broken and lovingly repaired. It now had a story of falling apart and coming back together, stronger and more beautiful than before. In that moment, Hideo understood the tea master's words. He understood that he had been worshipping a false idol of perfection. True beauty, true life, is not about being flawless. It is about the courage to embrace our own brokenness, to mend our own wounds with the gold of self-compassion and acceptance. He realized his rage at the young apprentice was a rage against life itself, against its inherent fragility and unpredictability. The next day, Hideo sought out Kenji, the banished apprentice. He found the boy working humbly in the village, his spirit crushed. Hideo bowed deeply to him and apologized.
He showed the boy the mended cup. "You did not destroy my greatest work," Hideo told him. "You helped to create it. You were the agent of its transformation. You gave it its soul. As you lie here, preparing for sleep, think of yourself as this teacup. You have been through life. You have been bumped. You have been dropped. You have your own cracks, your own broken pieces. Perhaps it is the scar from a childhood injury. Perhaps it is the memory of a past failure, a mistake you made that you cannot seem to forget. Perhaps it is a relationship that ended, leaving a jagged edge on your heart. Perhaps it is a part of your personality you wish were different, a perceived flaw you try to hide from the world. We are taught to see these things as sources of shame. We spend so much energy trying to appear smooth, flawless, and unbroken. It is an exhausting performance. The wisdom of Kintsugi offers you a different path. It invites you to see your scars, your flaws, and your painful histories not as things to be hidden, but as your own golden seams. These are the marks of your resilience. They are proof that you have lived, that you have been wounded, and that you have healed. They are the evidence of your strength. Your story is not written in your perfection. It is written in the beautiful, unique pattern of your golden repairs. So tonight, let go of the struggle to be perfect. You do not need to be. You are already whole, not in spite of your cracks, but because of them. Imagine you are holding a very fine brush and a small pot of liquid gold. With infinite tenderness and compassion, begin to trace the lines of your own imperfections. Trace the line of that mistake you made and see it not as a failure, but as a powerful lesson that made you wiser. Paint that scar with gold. Trace the line of that heartbreak and see it not as a sign of your unlovability, but as a testament to your capacity to love deeply. Paint that wound with gold. Trace the line of that insecurity you carry and see it not as a weakness, but as a place of vulnerability that connects you to the rest of humanity. Paint that flaw with gold. Feel the warmth of this golden acceptance spreading through your entire being. There is nothing about you that needs to be hidden. There is nothing about you that is shameful. You are a masterpiece of resilience, a beautiful, living work of Kintsugi. Your cracks are where the light gets in. Your history is what makes you precious. Rest in this deep and healing self-acceptance. Allow your body and mind to be at peace, knowing that you are beautiful, complete, and whole exactly as you are, broken and mended with gold. Hideo's workshop was transformed. It was no longer a sterile laboratory for the pursuit of an inhuman perfection. It became a place of warmth, acceptance, and life. He began to teach Kintsugi to others, not just as a repair technique, but as a way of life. His students were not just potters. They were people from all walks of life who brought him their own broken treasures. A farmer brought the chipped bowl his grandmother had used every day. A young woman brought a vase that had shattered during an earthquake. An old samurai brought a tea caddy that had been dropped in a moment of grief. With each piece, Hideo would tell the story of serenity, which he had renamed kokoro, the Japanese word for heart or spirit. He taught that the world is a place of constant change and impermanence, a truth known in Japanese aesthetics as wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi finds beauty in things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is the beauty of a mossy stone, a rusted iron gate, a fading autumn leaf. It is a beauty that is quiet, humble, and deeply connected to the realities of nature and time. Hideo's obsession with perfection had been a fight against this fundamental truth. Kintsugi was his way of making peace with it. He explained that when an object is broken, it is not the end of its life, but a turning point in its journey. The break is an event, a moment of trauma, but the repair is a choice. To mend something with gold is to make a conscious decision to embrace its history. It is to say, this is part of your story now, and it has made you more precious. The golden seams do not try to pretend the break never happened. On the contrary, they draw the eye to it, making it the focal point of the object's beauty. This has a profound parallel in our own emotional and psychological lives. When we experience pain or trauma, our first instinct is often to try and forget it, to paper over the cracks and pretend we are fine. We want to return to the perfect state we were in before the break. But this is a form of denial. The break happened. It has changed us. The wisdom of Kintsugi suggests that true healing comes not from erasing the past, but from integrating it. We can mend our psychological wounds with the gold of awareness, compassion, and understanding. Our past traumas, when integrated, can become the source of our greatest strength, empathy, and wisdom. The person who has known deep sorrow can offer a more profound comfort. The person who has failed and recovered can offer a more authentic guidance. Our golden seams become our gifts to the world. As you lie here, allow this gentle philosophy to permeate your being. The pressure to be perfect is a heavy burden. It is a source of constant anxiety and self-criticism. It isolates us because it forces us to hide our true, vulnerable selves from each other. Tonight, you can lay that burden down. You can give yourself permission to be beautifully imperfect. You can honor the journey that has brought you to this very moment with all of its bumps, its breaks, and its scars. These are not signs of your inadequacy. They are the marks of your unique and precious life. They are the lines of a story that only you can tell. Think of someone you love deeply. Is it their perfection that you love? Or is it their quirks, their vulnerabilities, their unique combination of strengths and weaknesses? We fall in love with the humanity in others, with their beautiful imperfections. The practice of Kintsugi is simply to learn to love ourselves with that same unconditional,
compassionate acceptance. Let this feeling of golden warmth fill your heart. Let it spread through your entire body, mending any places that feel broken, soothing any edges that feel sharp. You're not a problem to be solved. You're not a flawed object to be fixed or hidden away. You are a treasure, made more valuable by every experience you have endured and integrated. The world is not perfect. Life is not perfect. And you do not have to be perfect to be worthy of peace, of love, of rest. In fact, it is in embracing your imperfection that you find the deepest and most authentic peace. It is a peace that is not fragile or conditional. It is a resilient, flexible peace that can withstand the inevitable cracks and breaks of life. It is the quiet, enduring beauty of a teacup mended with gold. Rest in that beauty. Rest in that strength. Rest in the perfect imperfection of who you are. Part 8. The Farmer and His Horse. Letting Go of Judgment. We have learned to embrace our own beautiful imperfections, to see the golden seams in the cups that have been broken. Now, we must turn to another, more subtle form of breakage, the way we fracture reality itself with our judgments. Every moment of our lives, we take the seamless, flowing river of experience and we chop it into pieces. We label one piece good and another bad. We call this event a fortune and that one a disaster. This constant act of judging, of labeling, is the source of our deepest anxieties. It throws our minds into a state of constant turbulence, swinging from the highs of attachment to the lows of aversion. We are like a small boat tossed on the waves of our own opinions. But there is a way to find the calm, deep water that lies beneath these waves. It is the way of the old farmer, a man who understood that the threads of fortune and misfortune are woven so tightly together that they are impossible to tell apart. Let us travel to a land of mist-shrouded mountains and green terraced fields. In a small village, nestled in a valley carved by an ancient river, there lived an old farmer. He was a simple man, his face a roadmap of his long life under the sun and wind, his hands gnarled and strong from a lifetime of working the earth. He did not own much. His world consisted of a small patch of land, a humble hut, and a single, strong, beautiful horse. This horse was his greatest treasure. It was his companion in the fields, his means of travel, and the key to his livelihood. The farmer was a man of quiet observation. He understood the language of the clouds, the rhythm of the seasons, the needs of the soil. He lived in deep harmony with the world around him. His neighbors, the other villagers, were good people, but their minds were often noisy. They lived in a world of constant commentary and quick conclusions. They were quick to celebrate and quick to despair, their emotions rising and falling with the slightest change in circumstance. One spring morning, the farmer woke to find that his horse was gone. The gate to its enclosure was swinging open, and the stable was empty. The horse, his most valuable possession, had run away, perhaps lured by the scent of the wild mares that roamed the high mountain passes. The news spread through the village like fire through dry grass. Before the sun was high in the sky, a group of his neighbors had gathered at his gate. Their faces were etched with concern and pity. "Oh, old friend," said the baker, shaking his head. "What a terrible piece of luck! Your only horse gone. How will you ever plow your fields for the spring planting? This is a disaster for you." "A true calamity," agreed the weaver, her voice full of sympathy. "That horse was worth a small fortune. To lose it is to lose everything. We are so sorry for your misfortune." They surrounded him with a cloud of their own anxiety and sorrow. They had already written the end of the story. The farmer was ruined. His future was bleak. This was an unequivocally bad event. They looked at him, expecting to see a reflection of their own despair. But the old farmer was calm. He stood leaning on the empty gate, his gaze resting on the distant, misty mountains where his horse had vanished. He listened to their worried words, and when they had finished, he looked at them with his clear, steady eyes and said simply, "Maybe." The villagers were taken aback. Maybe? What did he mean? Maybe? This was not a maybe situation. This was a definite catastrophe. They looked at each other confused.
They thought perhaps the old man's grief had addled his mind. They offered a few more words of condolence and then left, shaking their heads, murmuring about the farmer's strange and detached response. The farmer, left alone, did not fall into despair. He accepted the reality of the moment. The horse was gone. He did not waste his energy resisting this fact or lamenting it. He did not know what this event would mean in the grand tapestry of his life. To call it a disaster was to claim to know the future, and he was wise enough to know that no one can do that. His maybe was not an expression of indifference. It was an expression of profound wisdom, an acknowledgement that life is a vast, interconnected process, and to judge any single event in isolation is an act of foolishness. He was leaving the story open. He was resting in the quiet space of not knowing. A few weeks passed. The farmer worked his fields by hand, a slow and difficult task. The villagers watched him with pity. Then one evening, as the sun was setting, casting long golden shadows across the valley, a sound was heard from the mountains. It was the thunder of hooves. The villagers came out of their homes and saw a remarkable sight. The farmer's horse was galloping down the mountain path, and following behind it was a herd of 12 magnificent wild horses, their manes flying in the wind. The farmer's horse had not just returned. It had brought back friends. Instantly, the village was buzzing with excitement. The same neighbors who had offered their condolences now rushed back to the farmer's gate, their faces beaming with joy and envy. "Old friend," shouted the baker, clapping him on the back. "What incredible fortune! Your horse has returned and brought you a whole herd. You are the richest man in the village now. That bad luck was the best thing that ever could have happened to you." "A true blessing from the heavens," exclaimed the weaver, her eyes wide with amazement. "To go from having nothing to having more than you could ever dream of. What a wonderful turn of events." They surrounded him now with a cloud of their excitement and congratulations. They had rewritten the story again. The disaster was now a miracle. The misfortune was now a great fortune. They looked at him, expecting to see a reflection of their own elation. But the old farmer was calm. He stood watching the beautiful, powerful horses milling about in his field, their wild energy a stark contrast to his own deep stillness. He listened to their excited words, and when they had finished, he looked at them with the same clear, steady eyes and said simply, "Maybe." The villagers were once again bewildered. Maybe? How could this be a maybe? This was an undeniable stroke of good fortune. Was the old man incapable of feeling joy? They celebrated for him, talking late into the night about his incredible luck. And once again they left his gate shaking their heads at his strange, unshakable equanimity. The farmer, left alone, did not swell with pride or attachment. He accepted the reality of the moment. There were now many horses. He did not cling to this new wealth or build his identity upon it. He knew that this event, too, was just a single frame in a much longer film. To call it good fortune was to again claim to know the future, to believe that this was the final, happy ending. He knew the story was still being written. He remained in the still center, unswayed by the winds of praise, just as he had been unswayed by the winds of pity. The farmer's only son, a strong and capable young man, began the difficult task of taming the wild horses. A few days later, he was trying to break in a particularly spirited black stallion. The horse reared up, and the son was thrown violently to the ground. There was a sickening crack. The farmer rushed to his side and found that his son's leg was badly broken. The news spread through the village. The familiar procession of neighbors soon arrived at the farmer's gate. This time their faces were a mixture of pity and a certain grim satisfaction, as if their initial fears had been proven right all along. "Oh, old friend," said the baker, his voice low and somber. "We were right to be wary. This fortune was a curse in disguise. Your only son, your only help in the fields now, crippled. What terrible, terrible luck!" "This is far worse than losing the horse," said the weaver, dabbing her eyes with a cloth. "The horses brought this tragedy upon you. To have your son hurt like this, it is the worst misfortune of all." They surrounded him with a cloud of their renewed despair. The story had taken another dark turn. The miracle was now a curse. The blessing was a tragedy. They looked at him, certain that now, finally, his calm would be broken. But the old farmer was calm. He was inside the hut, gently and skillfully binding his son's broken leg with splints and clean linen. He listened to their somber words through the open door, and when they fell silent, he came out and looked at them. His eyes were full of compassion for his son's pain, but not despair for the future. He said simply, "Maybe." By now, the villagers did not know what to think. They left in a state of confused silence. The farmer's refusal to participate in their emotional drama was a mystery they could not solve. A year later, the emperor's army marched into the valley. A war had broken out in a distant province, and the army was conscripting every able-bodied young man to be sent to the front lines. Stern-faced officers went from house to house, their drums beating a grim rhythm. The village was filled with the sounds of weeping, as sons were torn from the arms of their mothers and fathers. It was well known that the war was brutal, and few who were taken ever returned. The officers came to the old farmer's hut. They saw his son sitting in the sun, his leg still healing, leaning on a pair of crutches. They looked at his misshapen leg, declared him unfit for service, and marched on to the next house. That evening, the village was quiet, draped in a heavy blanket of grief. The baker's son was gone. The weaver's son was gone. All the strong young men were gone. The neighbors came to the farmer's hut one last time. They did not come with advice or judgment. They came in silence, their faces streaked with tears, their hearts broken. They looked at the farmer's son, safe at home with his father. They looked at the old farmer, who was preparing a simple pot of tea for them. They finally understood. The disaster of the lost horse led to the fortune of the new herd. The fortune of the herd led to the disaster of the broken leg. The disaster of the broken leg led to the fortune of being saved from the war. Good and bad, fortune and misfortune, they were not separate things. They were two sides of the same coin, a chain of events so intricately linked that no single link could be judged on its own. The baker looked at the old farmer, his eyes full of a new, humbled respect. "Your bad luck was good luck," he said quietly, "and our good luck was bad luck. You were right all along." The old farmer simply smiled a gentle, compassionate smile. He did not say, "I told you so." He did not even say, "maybe." He just poured the tea and shared it with his grieving neighbors, his quiet presence a more powerful teaching than any words could ever be. As you lie here, on the edge of sleep, you can feel the villager within your own mind. All day long it has been judging. The traffic was bad. The compliment from your boss was good. The unexpected bill was bad. The phone call from a friend was good. Your mind has been swinging back and forth from pleasure to pain, from anxiety to relief. This is an exhausting way to live. It is the source of so much of our inner turmoil. The story of the farmer offers you a place of rest. It offers you the quiet, spacious wisdom of maybe. This is not a call to be passive or indifferent. It is an invitation to let go of your rigid conclusions about life. It is an invitation to trust that you do not see the whole picture. The event that seems like a disaster today may be the very thing that opens the door to a great blessing tomorrow. The success you celebrate today may contain the seeds of a future challenge. You can let go of the need to have it all figured out. You can release the burden of being the judge and jury of your own life. Bring to mind one thing from your day that you labeled bad. A mistake you made, a difficult moment, an unpleasant surprise. See it clearly in your mind. Feel the tension that this judgment creates in your body. Now, can you hold it with the farmer's wisdom? Can you whisper to yourself, maybe? Feel the subtle release that comes with that word. You are letting go of the story. You are opening up to possibility. You are making peace with not knowing. Now, bring to mind one thing from your day that you labeled good. A moment of joy, a piece of good news, a small success. See it clearly. Feel the way you might be clinging to it, wanting it to last forever. Now, can you hold this too with the farmer's wisdom? Can you whisper, maybe? Feel the release that comes from letting go of your attachment. You can enjoy the moment fully without the anxious need to make it permanent. This is the path to equanimity. It is the still point in the turning world. It is the peace that is not dependent on circumstances being good or bad. It is a peace that comes from accepting all of it with a quiet, open, and trusting heart. Let this gentle wisdom be your lullaby tonight. Let go of the day's verdicts. The trial is over. There is nothing left to judge. There is only this moment, this breath, this quiet descent into rest. Allow your mind to become as calm and spacious as the old farmer's. Let it rest in the profound peace of maybe. The farmer's wisdom is not about predicting a positive outcome from a negative event. It is not a form of blind optimism that says, don't worry, this is secretly good. That is just another judgment, another attempt to write the end of the story. The wisdom of maybe is far more radical. It is the complete surrender of our need to write the story at all. It is the recognition that life is a process far too complex and mysterious for our small labeling minds to grasp. When we label an event bad, we create a state of resistance. We fight against what is. We say, this should not be happening. This resistance is the source of our suffering. The event itself is just an event. It is our judgment and our resistance that create the pain. The farmer did not resist the fact that his horse was gone. He accepted it. From that place of acceptance, he was free. He was not trapped in a mental battle with reality. When we label an event good, we create a state of attachment, of clinging. We say, I need this to stay. My happiness depends on it. This clinging is the seed of future suffering, because in a world where everything changes, nothing stays. The farmer did not cling to his new herd of horses. He accepted their presence, but his inner peace was not dependent on them. From that place of non-attachment, he was free. He was not trapped by the fear of future loss. This practice of letting go of judgment is a deep form of kindness to ourselves. It frees us from the exhausting emotional roller coaster of daily life. It allows us to meet each moment with a sense of open curiosity rather than a pre-written verdict. We can ask, what is this? Instead of declaring, this is terrible, or this is wonderful. This open-ended question keeps our minds soft, flexible, and resilient. As you settle deeper into your bed, feel this softening happening throughout your being. Let go of the rigid judgments you hold about your own body, your personality, your life's path. You may have a story that you are not a good sleeper. Maybe. You may have a story that you are too anxious. Maybe. You may have a story that your life is not where it should be. Maybe. Each time you can release one of these heavy, definitive judgments and replace it with the gentle, open space of maybe, you give yourself a profound gift. You are unhooking yourself from a fixed and limiting narrative. You are allowing for the possibility of change, of surprise, of grace. You are acknowledging that the story is not finished. Let the farmer's calm be your own. Let your mind become a wide, peaceful valley. The events of the day, the thoughts of good and bad, are like clouds that drift through this valley. You do not need to chase them. You do not need to name them. You can simply watch them come and go from a place of deep, unshakable stillness. This stillness is your true nature. It is the peace that is always present, beneath the noisy weather of your judgments. Rest in that stillness now. The story of today is complete. The next chapter has not yet been written. In this quiet space between the stories, there is only peace. Part 9. The breath as an anchor to the present. We have journeyed far tonight. We have opened our clenched fist, seen the emptiness of the boats that collide with us, and left the past on the riverbank. We have learned to flow like a river to the sea, to release the weight of our identity, to empty our overflowing cup, to find the beauty in our brokenness, and to let go of the exhausting habit of judgment. We have explored these profound ideas through stories, through metaphors. Now we arrive at a place that is simpler, more direct, and more intimate than any story. We arrive at the breath. For all our explorations of the mind, the most powerful tool for letting go is not an idea, but a physical reality that is with us in every moment of our lives. The breath is our most faithful companion. It is the first thing we receive when we are born, and the last thing we release when we die. It is the rhythm of life itself, a constant, gentle tide flowing in and out, connecting our inner world with the world outside. And yet, most of the time we are completely unaware of it. Tonight, we will shift our focus from narrative to direct experience. We will learn to use this simple, humble breath as an anchor, a tool to bring us out of the turbulent waters of our thoughts and into the calm, safe harbor of the present moment. This is not a story to be listened to, but an experience to be felt, a gentle guidance into the deepest state of release, preparing you for a truly peaceful sleep. Let us begin by simply becoming aware of the fact that you are breathing. There is no need to change your breath in any way. Do not try to make it deeper or slower. Just notice it. Notice the gentle sensation of the air entering your nostrils. It might feel slightly cool as it comes in. Notice the feeling of your chest or your abdomen gently rising with the in-breath. And notice the feeling of your chest or abdomen softly falling with the out-breath. Notice the air as it leaves your body, perhaps feeling slightly warmer now. Just this simple act of noticing is a profound practice. For the moments that you are truly paying attention to the physical sensations of your breath, you are not lost in thought. You are not worrying about tomorrow. You are not replaying yesterday. You are here. You are now. The breath only ever happens in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past. You cannot breathe in the future. To be with the breath is to be fully, completely in the now. And the present moment is the only place where peace can ever be found. Think of your mind as a vast open sky. Your thoughts are like clouds drifting through. Sometimes the sky is clear, and sometimes it is full of dark, stormy clouds. Our usual habit is to get caught up in the clouds. A worry cloud appears, and we climb onto it, letting it carry us away into a landscape of anxiety. A memory cloud appears, and we drift with it back into the past. We spend our lives lost in the clouds, forgetting that we are the sky. The breath is your anchor to the sky. When you find yourself lost in a cloud
of thought, you can gently, kindly, without any judgment, release your grip on the thought and bring your attention back to the anchor of the breath. Feel the sensation of the air. Feel the rising and falling of your body. Each time you do this, you are returning home. You are coming back to the vast, peaceful expanse of the sky, allowing the cloud to drift on by without you. Let us try this together now. As you lie here, simply rest your attention on your breathing and just wait. It will not be long before a thought arises. The mind is a thought-generating machine. It is what it does. Perhaps the thought is a sound you hear in the room. Perhaps it is a plan for the morning. Perhaps it is a random image. The moment you realize you are no longer paying attention to your breath, but are instead following a thought, that is a moment of mindfulness. That is a small victory. There is no need for frustration or self-criticism. Simply acknowledge the thought, gently let it go, and guide your attention back to the anchor, back to the feeling of the in-breath, back to the feeling of the out-breath. You may have to do this 100 times. You may have to do it 1,000 times. It does not matter. The practice is not about achieving a perfectly thought-free mind. The practice is in the returning. Each time you return to the breath, you are strengthening a mental muscle. You are training your mind to be less reactive, more stable, more peaceful. You are learning to be the master of your own attention rather than a slave to your own thoughts. Now, let us deepen this practice. Let us infuse the breath with the intention of letting go. The breath is a natural cycle of receiving and releasing. The in-breath is a receiving of life, of energy, of the present moment. The out-breath is a natural release, a letting go. We can use this rhythm to consciously release the tension we hold in our bodies and our minds. Bring your awareness to your body. Scan it gently from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head. Notice if there are any areas of tightness or tension. Perhaps you feel it in your jaw, your shoulders, your stomach. These are the physical manifestations of a mind that is holding on. Now, as you breathe in, imagine you are breathing a soft, healing light directly into one of these areas of tension. And as you breathe out, imagine that tension dissolving, melting away, flowing out of your body with the breath. Let the exhale be a long, soft, gentle sigh of release. Let's do this with the jaw. As you inhale, bring your awareness to the muscles around your mouth and jaw. And as you exhale, let them go completely. Allow your teeth to part slightly. Feel the deep release in those small, powerful muscles that have been clenching all day. Let's move to the shoulders. As you inhale, feel the space around your shoulders and neck. And as you exhale, let them become heavy. Let them sink down, completely supported, releasing the weight of all the responsibilities you have been carrying. Let's bring the awareness to the stomach. As you inhale, allow your belly to be soft and open. And as you exhale, release the knot of anxiety that so often resides there. Let go of the worry. Let go of the fear. Continue this practice on your own, moving through your body. With each out-breath, you are giving your body a silent instruction. Let go. You're giving yourself permission to release the accumulated stress of the day. The breath is your broom, and with each exhale, you are gently sweeping your body clean, creating a state of deep, profound physical relaxation. The body and mind are intimately connected. As the body lets go, the mind will follow. Now, let us apply this same principle to our thoughts and emotions. Just as we hold tension in our muscles, we hold on to thoughts and feelings in our minds. The out-breath can be a powerful tool for releasing these as well. As you lie here, a thought or a feeling may arise. Perhaps it is a lingering feeling of irritation from the day. Perhaps it is a sense of sadness. Perhaps it is a persistent worry. Instead of fighting it or getting lost in it, you can breathe with it. As you inhale, acknowledge the feeling without judgment. Ah, there is irritation. You are not the irritation. You are the awareness that is noticing the irritation. And as you exhale, imagine that feeling of irritation dissolving, flowing out of you with the breath, becoming a small cloud of energy that dissipates into the vast space of the room. You are not pushing the feeling away. You are gently, compassionately letting it go. You are allowing it to move through you and out of you. The breath is the vehicle. The exhale is the release. This practice transforms your relationship with your own mind. You are no longer a victim of your thoughts and moods. You become a wise and compassionate host. A difficult thought arrives at your door. You do not have to slam the door in its face, nor do you have to invite it in for a long and difficult conversation. You can simply acknowledge its presence and allow it to continue on its way. The breath is the gentle usher that shows it the door. As you continue to rest with your breath, you may notice that the space between your thoughts begins to grow longer. The mind becomes quieter, more spacious. The waves of thought on the surface of the mind begin to calm, revealing the deep, silent stillness that lies beneath. This stillness has been here all along. It is your true nature. It is the peace you have been seeking. The breath is the anchor that allows you to rest in this deep, quiet place. Let your breath be your lullaby. Let its gentle, steady rhythm soothe you. There is nothing else you need to do. There is nowhere else you need to be. You are anchored safely in this present moment. The past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. There is only the gentle in-breath and the soft, releasing out-breath. Feel your body becoming heavier, more and more relaxed with each exhale. Feel your mind becoming quieter, more and more peaceful. You are letting go of the day. You are letting go of your worries. You are letting go of the effort to fall asleep. You are simply resting with your breath. And in this simple, profound act of resting, sleep will naturally come to find you. The breath is the bridge between your conscious mind and the deep, restorative state of sleep. Allow yourself to walk across that bridge now. With each breath, You are taking another step into a land of deep peace and quiet. The anchor is holding you steady. You are safe. You are calm. You are ready to let go completely and drift into a deep and healing sleep. Let us explore the texture of the breath more deeply. It is not just a mechanical process. It has a quality, a feeling, a life of its own. Notice the very beginning of your in-breath. There is a moment of stillness just before it starts. And then, the gentle, cool flow of air begins. Follow it with your awareness as it travels into your body, filling your lungs. Feel the peak of the inhalation, the moment of fullness. There is another pause here, a brief, quiet turning point. And then the journey of the out-breath begins. Feel the release, the surrender, the gentle flow of warm air leaving your body. Follow it all the way out until it dissolves into the space around you. And notice the moment of emptiness at the end of the exhale, the quiet pause before the cycle begins anew. This entire cycle, the pause, the inflow, the pause, the outflow, is a complete meditation in itself. It is a microcosm of the rhythm of life. There are times of gathering and times of release, times of fullness and times of emptiness. By simply resting your attention on this natural four-part rhythm, you are aligning yourself with the fundamental pulse of the universe. You are practicing acceptance of the natural flow of things. You are not trying to hold on to the fullness of the in-breath, nor are you trying to rush through the emptiness of the out-breath. You are allowing each part of the cycle to be exactly as it is. This is a profound antidote to the restless, striving nature of our minds. Our minds are always wanting to be somewhere else. When we are sad, we want to be happy. When we are bored, we want to be excited. We are always trying to hold on to the pleasant moments and push away the unpleasant ones. But the breath teaches us a different way. It teaches us to be present for the whole cycle. It teaches us that the emptiness is as important as the fullness. The release is as vital as the gathering. As you lie here, you can even add a silent word to your breath to deepen the practice. As you breathe in, you might silently say to yourself, "I am here." And as you breathe out, you might say, "Letting go." Inhale, "I am here." This affirms your presence in this moment, in this body, in this bed. It is a gentle reminder to come home to yourself. Exhale, letting go. This is your gentle instruction to your body and mind. Letting go of tension, letting go of thought, letting go of the day. I am here, letting go. Let these words become a gentle mantra, a quiet song that your breath sings to you. The words themselves are not magical. Their power lies in their ability to keep your attention anchored, to give your mind a simple, peaceful task to focus on. As you repeat them, you are weaving a tapestry of calm, thread by thread, breath by breath. Do not worry if your mind wanders away. This is natural. The moment you notice it has wandered, you are already back. Gently, without any self-recrimination, just begin again. I am here, letting go. Feel how this simple practice begins to change your inner landscape. The chaotic jungle of thoughts begins to thin out, revealing a clear, quiet path.
The turbulent ocean of emotions begins to calm, its surface becoming smooth and reflective. You are not suppressing anything. You are simply choosing to rest your attention in a place of peace. You are choosing to water the seeds of tranquility within you rather than the seeds of anxiety. The breath is always with you. It is the most reliable refuge you will ever have. In any moment of stress or difficulty during your waking life, you can always return to your breath. No one even needs to know you are doing it. It is your secret, silent anchor in the storms of life. And at night, it is your gentle ferryman, carrying you across the waters from the busy shore of wakefulness to the quiet, peaceful island of sleep. Allow the ferryman to do his work now. You do not need to row. You do not need to steer. You only need to lie down in the boat and trust the journey. The rhythm of your breath is the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull. The feeling of release on the exhale is the boat drifting further and further from the shore. Let go of any remaining effort. Let go of the practice itself. Let go of the one who is practicing. Allow yourself to simply become the breath. Merge with its rhythm. Dissolve into its flow. There is no longer a you who is watching the breath. There is only breathing. There is only the gentle, rhythmic rising and falling of life itself. This is the ultimate letting go. It is the surrender of the observer, the dissolution of the self into the simple, profound reality of the present moment. In this state of complete surrender, sleep is not something that happens to you. It is a state you merge with, a deep ocean of peace that you finally allow yourself to become one with. The anchor has done its job. It has held you steady while the storm of the day passed. Now, you can let go of the anchor itself. You are safe in the harbor. The waters are calm. The night is still. Allow yourself to drift. Allow yourself to rest. Allow yourself to sleep. Part 10, the uncarved block, returning to simplicity. Our
journey tonight is nearing its end. We have walked a long and quiet path together, a path of release. We began with the simple image of a clenched fist, and we learned the profound relief of opening our hand. We sat in a small boat on a misty lake and discovered the peace that comes from seeing the other boats as empty. We stood on a riverbank with two monks and learned to leave the past behind us, to stop carrying that which is no longer ours to hold. We followed the great river on its inexorable journey to the sea, surrendering to the wisdom of its flow. We watched a calligrapher release the heavy burden of his own identity, finding himself not in a perfect character, but in a flawed and living circle. We sat for tea with a master and learned that wisdom requires not a full cup, but an empty one. We saw the beauty of a broken teacup mended with gold and learned to love the golden seams of our own imperfections. And with an old farmer, we found a deep and unshakable peace in the simple, spacious wisdom of maybe. With each story, we have let go of another layer of complexity, another source of tension. We have become lighter, quieter, more spacious. And now, we arrive at the very heart of the matter. We have let go of so much, but what remains? What is the fundamental nature that is revealed when all the striving, all the judging, all the holding on has ceased? To understand this, we turn to one final, simple, and powerful image: the uncarved block. Imagine, in a quiet forest of ancient cedar trees, a woodsman has just felled a great tree. From its trunk, he has cut a single clean block of wood. It sits now in a sunlit clearing. Go to it. Feel its presence. It is a simple, honest thing. It is not yet a table, or a chair, or a beam for a house. It is not yet a beautiful statue of a Buddha or a fierce carving of a dragon. It has no name.
It has no purpose. It is simply wood. Run your hand over its surface. You can feel the rough texture of the grain, the living history of the tree written in its lines. Bring it close and inhale its scent. It smells of the deep forest, of damp earth, of rain, and of time itself. It is solid. It is whole. It is complete, exactly as it is. In its simplicity, it holds an infinite potential. It could become anything. And because it could become anything, it is, in its own way, everything. This is what the ancient Taoist masters called Pu, the uncarved block. It symbolizes our original nature, the state of our being before the world began to carve us. We all begin as an uncarved block. We are born into this world, whole and simple, a being of pure potential. But then, the carving begins. The world picks up its tools. Our parents, our teachers, our friends, and eventually we ourselves become the carvers. The first tools are the chisels of language and labels. A piece is chipped away, and we are given a name. Another cut, and we are told, you are a good child, or you are a shy child. Another, you are smart. Another, you are clumsy. Each label, whether a compliment or a criticism, is a cut. It begins to shape us, to define us, to limit us. Then come the saws of expectation. Society tells us what a successful life looks like, and we begin to saw away the parts of ourselves that do not fit that pattern. We are expected to be strong, so we cut away our vulnerability. We are expected to be happy, so we cut away our sadness. We carve ourselves into a shape that we believe will be pleasing to others. Then come the fine-grained sandpapers of knowledge and experience. We learn things. We have successes and failures. We are hurt. We fall in love. Each experience sands down one surface and roughens another. We develop a complex personality, a collection of beliefs, opinions, and memories. The original, simple block of wood becomes a complex and intricate sculpture. This sculpture is our identity, the self we present to the world. It may be a very beautiful and impressive sculpture. It may be strong, accomplished, and admired. But it is also rigid. It is fixed. It has lost the infinite potential of the uncarved block. And the process of carving has created countless splinters, the small anxieties, the small regrets, the nagging insecurities that get under our skin. We become so identified with the sculpture that we forget our fundamental nature. We forget that underneath all the intricate carvings we are still, and have always been, the wood. In a mountain hut, far from the noise of the capital, lived an old sage named Wei. He was known not for his scholarly texts, but for his profound simplicity. He spent his days tending his small garden, watching the clouds, and carving small, simple figures from pieces of wood. One day, a high-ranking government official made the long journey to visit him. The official was a man who had been carved into a masterpiece of success. He was wealthy, powerful, and respected. His robes were of the finest silk. His mind was sharp as a blade, and his life was a monument to his ambition. But he was deeply unhappy. His mind never rested. He was plagued by insomnia. His shoulders were tight with the constant burden of his duties, and he felt a deep, hollow emptiness that all his success could not fill. He found the old sage sitting outside his hut, holding a simple, uncarved block of pine wood. Wei was not doing anything to it. He was just holding it, feeling its weight and its texture, as if it were a precious jewel. The official bowed stiffly. "Master Wei," he said, his voice accustomed to command, "I have come to learn the secret of your peace. I have everything a man could want, yet I am tormented. You have nothing, yet you seem to be at peace with the world. Please, teach me your way." Wei looked up, his eyes as clear as the mountain stream that ran nearby. He looked at the official's fine robes, his tired face, and the deep, intricate carvings of his personality. Then he looked down at the block of wood in his hands. "The world," Wei said softly, "has made a very fine carving of you. It has given you a title, a reputation, and many duties. It has carved you with great skill. You have become a beautiful but very heavy statue." The official was impatient. "Yes, yes," he said, "but what is the secret to peace?" Wei did not answer directly. He gestured for the official to sit. He then picked up a small, exquisitely carved statue of a crane from his doorway. It was a work of art, every feather detailed, its posture elegant and lifelike. "This is beautiful, is it not?" Wei asked. "It is a masterpiece," the official agreed. Wei then took a small knife and pressed its tip against the crane's delicate leg. With a tiny amount of pressure, a small splinter of wood flaked off. "A statue," Wei said, "is very fragile. It is defined by its edges, its details. It is easily damaged. It spends all its time trying not to be broken." He then placed the intricate crane back in the doorway and picked up the simple, uncarved block of pine again. He handed it to the official. The official took it. It was surprisingly heavy, solid and warm from the sun. "Now, try to damage this," Wei said. The official took the knife and tried to press it into the block. It barely made a scratch. He could chip a small piece from the corner, but it did not diminish the block. It was still a solid, whole piece of wood. It had no delicate parts to protect. Its strength was in its simplicity, its wholeness. "You have become the statue," Wei said, his voice as gentle as the wind in the pine trees. "You are so busy protecting all the fine details of your carving, your reputation, your wealth, your power, that you are in a state of constant tension. You have forgotten that your true nature is not the carving, it is the wood. The secret to peace is not to become a more perfect statue. It is to remember the simple, solid, unbreakable nature of the uncarved block." The official sat in silence for a long time, the block of wood resting in his lap. He felt its simple, honest weight. He looked at his own hands, soft and uncalloused, the hands of a man who commanded others. He thought of his mind, so full of complex strategies, political intrigues and worries. He had been carved so finely that there was no room left to just be. For the first time, he felt a deep longing not for more success, but for less complexity. He longed for the simple, quiet strength of the wood. As you lie here now, at the end of this long day, at the end of this long journey of letting go, you can return to the uncarved block. The day has been a process of carving. You have played your roles, fulfilled your duties, fought your complex thoughts. You have been the statue. But now, in the quiet sanctuary of the night, you can let the carving dissolve. You can return to the wood. This is not a violent act. You do not need to smash the statue. You simply need to shift your awareness. Feel the solid, simple presence of your body resting here. This body is not its name. It is not its job. It is not its history. It is a simple, living, breathing piece of nature. It is the wood. With each exhale, imagine you are letting go of one of the carvings. Let go of the title you hold at work. Let it fade back into the simple grain of your being. Let go of the role you play in your family. Let it soften and dissolve. Let go of the sharp edges of the day's worries, the intricate details of your plans for tomorrow. Imagine them all smoothing out, returning to the simple, solid form of the block. Feel the deep, quiet peace that comes with this return to simplicity. The uncarved block has no ambitions. It does not need to prove anything. It is not trying to be better or different than it is. It is simply at rest, whole and complete in its own nature. You can allow yourself the same profound rest. In the state of deep sleep, you naturally return to the uncarved block. In dreamless sleep, you have no name, no past, no future. You are not a man or a woman. You are not your successes or your failures. You are pure, undifferentiated being. You are consciousness at rest in its source. This is why sleep is so profoundly restorative. It is a nightly return to our original simple nature. You do not need to force this. You only need to allow it. Feel yourself becoming more and more simple. Let the complexities of your mind fall away like wood shavings. Let the sharp edges of your identity soften. Feel yourself becoming solid, whole, and deeply, deeply peaceful. You are the uncarved block. You are pure potential. You are strength in its simplest form. There is nothing you need to do. There is nothing you need to be. You are already home. Rest in this simplicity. Rest in this wholeness. Rest in this deep, silent, and profound peace. The journey is over. The carving is done for the day. Now there is only the quiet, solid, and perfect rest of the uncarved wood. The official stayed with Wei for several days. He did not ask any more questions. Instead, he watched. He watched Wei move through his day with an economy of motion and a fullness of presence that was a teaching in itself. Wei would tend his garden, and he would be the gardening. He would chop wood, and he would be the chopping. There was no separation between him and the act. There was no inner commentary, no sense of a self performing a task. The official realized that his own life was the opposite. When he was writing a decree, part of his mind was thinking about the political implications, another part was worrying about his rival's opinion, and another part was planning his evening meal. He was never fully present for anything. He was a collection of scattered fragments, while the old sage was a unified whole. One afternoon, Wei handed the official a piece of wood and a small, sharp knife. "Carve something," he said.
The official, a man of great intellect and culture, immediately began to think. What should he carve? A dragon to symbolize power? A mountain to symbolize endurance? A scholar to symbolize wisdom? His mind was a flurry of concepts and symbols. He wanted to create something impressive, something that would show the sage his own depth and understanding. He made a few tentative cuts, but his hand was clumsy, and his mind was too full of ideas. The wood resisted him. The carving was stiff and lifeless. After an hour of frustrating effort, he put the knife down in defeat. "I cannot do it," he said. "My mind is too loud." Wei smiled. "The wood does not want to be a concept," he said. "It wants to be what it is. Do not try to force it to become your idea. Instead, listen to the wood. Hold it. Feel its grain. Let the wood tell you what it wants to become." This was a strange and radical idea for the official. His entire life had been about imposing his will on the world.
He had never thought to listen to it. He picked up the wood again, but this time he did not think. He just held it. He closed his eyes. He felt the lines of the grain under his fingertips, the slight variations in its density, the way it felt warmer in some places than others. He stopped trying to be a carver and simply became a listener. After a long time, he picked up the knife again. This time, his hand moved with a new kind of certainty. It was not the certainty of an expert, but the certainty of a collaborator. He was not carving the wood. He was helping the wood reveal the form that was already hidden within it. He followed the grain. He worked with the wood's nature, not against it. The result was not a grand dragon or a wise scholar. It was a simple, smooth shape that fit perfectly in the palm of his hand. It was not impressive, but it felt true. It felt alive. Holding the simple shape, he understood. Peace was not about acquiring more knowledge or power. It was about unlearning, about returning to a simpler, more direct way of being. It was about listening more and imposing less. It was about collaborating with the flow of life, rather than constantly trying to control it. The uncarved block was not a state of ignorance. It was a state of profound, intuitive wisdom. It was the wisdom of the hand, not just the head. As you lie here, you can let go of the need to be the master carver of your own life. You can release the immense pressure of trying to force your life, your body, your mind, into a preconceived idea of what it should be. You can, instead, practice listening. Listen to your body. It has a deep wisdom of its own. It knows how to rest. It knows how to heal. Your only task is to get your thinking, planning, carving mind out of its way. Let go of the ideas of how you should be sleeping and simply allow your body's natural intelligence to take over. Trust it. It knows the way. Listen to your heart. Beneath the surface noise of daily emotions, there is a deeper, quieter current. It is the grain of your being. What is it telling you? In this quiet moment, you can let go of the world's expectations and listen for the simple, true form that wants to be revealed in your life. This return to simplicity is the ultimate act of self-care. It is a radical act in a world that constantly demands more complexity, more productivity, more carving. To choose to rest in the simple, unadorned truth of your own being is to find a source of peace that cannot be taken away from you. It does not depend on external circumstances. It is the solid, reliable wood at the core of your existence. Feel this solid core now. It is the stillness beneath your thoughts. It is the silence beneath the sounds. It is the deep, unwavering peace that is your birthright. You do not need to achieve it. You only need to return to it. You only need to let go of all the carvings that obscure it. The journey is complete. You have let go of everything that can be let go. What remains is the essential you. Simple, whole, peaceful, ready for the deepest rest. Allow yourself to sink into this profound simplicity. There are no more stories. There are no more lessons. There is only the quiet, restorative, and boundless peace of the uncarved block. Rest now. Rest in your own true nature.